and Newcastle have got a young group of coaches.
Yep.
They're finding their way for definite in the Premiership. It's a very different regime to what it was previously before Dave Walder became head coach. And I just think it's fascinating. I mean, my philosophy would be to do the sort of things they're talking about. But getting Ben Stokes and Gary Armstrong and the lady from the air ambulance and para-Olympian from the rugby league, para-rugby league player, whatever the right term is, to come and speak to the guys about different aspects of what they do is it imaginative? I don't know whether it's imaginative.
It's inspiring.
If it's done in the right way, it can be very inspiring.
Absolutely. These are people being the top end of the profession, and there's always things that you can learn. I mean, despite the criticism of Pep Guardiola at times, I mean, he was a great believer in bringing coaches in from different sports and reacting, especially rugby as well. I think he did some work with Johnny Wilkinson, didn't he, at one stage with Man City. A different voice can do no harm, and if it does good, so much the better.
Well, tonight it's Connacht who come to the northeast of England to take on the Newcastle Falcons in the final group game of the European Challenge Cup. It'll be the final game in this year's competition for the Newcastle Falcons. Connacht will go into the round of last 16, but they come to Tyneside with Mac Hansen at fullback, Adam Byrne and Alex Wooten on the wing, Byron Ralston and Cathal Ford in the centres. Connor Fitzgerald starts at 10, Colin Riley starts at 9. The front row has Dennis Buckley on the loose head side, Finlay Beelum on the tight head side, and Shane Delahunt starts at hooker. Lever Fafita and Josh Murphy are the second row, Shane Hurley Langdon on the blind side of the back row, Conor Oliver on the open side, and Captain Jared Butler is at number 8. Newcastle start with the old-timer, Alex Tate at fullback, Ben Stevenson, Mario Carreras on the wings, Matthias Orlando and Pete Lucock in the centres. Dean Schoolman continues at 10, Michael Young captains Newcastle from scrum half. The front row has Ligovi Moolipola and Trevor Davison on either side of Jamie Plummeyer. In the second row, Greg Peterson, now partner Sebastian de Chavez, and in the back row, Gary Graham. On the blind side, Philip Vanderbilt starts his first game for Newcastle this season. Came off the bench last weekend at Cardiff. On the open side, and Carl Burns is at number 8. Dylan Tierney Martin is a replacement hooker for Connacht. Jordan Duggan, Jack Ongaye are the prop replacements. Dara Murphy and Kieran Booth, the forward replacements. Caelan Blade, Tom Daly and Tom Farrell are the back replacements. Charlie Madison's replacement hooker for Newcastle. Adam Brocklebank, Richard Palfrey replacement props. Freddie Lockwood and Pedro Rubiolo are the forward replacements. Josh Martin, Josh Thomas and Adam Radwan are the back replacement. Pierre Baptiste Nunchi for France is our referee. Thomas Charabas and Stéphane Crapois are the two assist referees, and Denis Griolier, also from France, is the TMO and sighting commissioner from Scotland, Richard McGee. Tian Schoolman's going to get the game underway. Newcastle kicking from left to right in front of us in all green. That's from north to south. Floodlights are on. 5:30 on a dark winter's night on Tyneside. And that is a kick recovered by Alex Tate inside his own half, heading across the halfway line, runs into Connacht defenders, taken down the ground by Mac Hansen. Michael Young moves it on to Peterson. Peters ducks that right shoulder into the frame of Shane Delahunt, back to Sebastian de Chavez, on to Philip Vanderbilt, being pushed towards the right-hand touchline. The assistant referee's flag goes in the air, and an interesting start by Newcastle. They look like they want to keep the ball alive.
They do, don't they? Try to find the edge, change the point of attack very quickly. Cam on the blind side, probably just too many numbers on that blind side to give a clear running angle for Phil van der Vault, and a bit rusty still, probably just had that cameo role last weekend, but it's sticking your foot in the touchline. Assistant referee's flag straight up.
Well, there's 4 men in the line for Connacht. Newcastle all in green tonight, Connacht in... Is that a really dark green, or is it black, the bottom part of those
It's
shorts?
black, I think, isn't it?
Black with white sort of shoulders, black shorts and black socks. Big kick by Connor Fitzgerald, fielded by Alex Tate, on to Ben Stevenson, looks for space, can't find it, taken down the ground in the middle part of the field, just about on halfway. Newcastle get the penalty, not rolling away in the contact, and you can see as they get off the ground there, Dean, there's a Connacht player that's outside centre, Byron Ralston, who's just completely on the wrong side of the contact area.
Easy first decision for the referee to give, wasn't it, from a penalty, not quick enough away. If he referees like that all night, Smithy, I think both sides will come to terms with that pretty quickly, and it'll be a decent game.
Tian Schoolman, not a long kick by Schoolman, takes play up the left-hand touchline, a safe kick. But he made about 20 metres. He's got to have a game in him, hasn't he? He's still finding his way back after a long injury when he's at Bath. But he's been here nearly a full season now.
He has, and that right knee is always heavily strapped, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we've seen he's a decent player, but he's had very little game time, hasn't he?
Lemire feeds that ball in. One hand. De Chavez down to Michael Young in the midfield. Orlando just gets up ahead of steam, tests that defensive line of Connacht. Jimmy Plummeyer Takes the ball off Michael Young. There's Connacht players in his way. Penalty comes again, and Michael Young is taken down to ground by James Hurley-Langton.
To be fair, Smithy, I think Michael Young could have bought a penalty
the
place before.
Yeah. He was trying to buy it, but the referee wasn't giving him it.
Yeah.
And we haven't got the ref mate again tonight. I was anxiously looking for somebody on the TV gantry who I could say, can you plug this in for us, please? But nobody arrived, nobody surfaced. So we're without the ref mate, so we're guessing, as are all the crowd just about. You'll help me on that one though, won't you?
Good, yes.
You know all the laws, don't you?
Well, apparently I don't from last night's performance in the Vets tournament at Whitley Bay Rockcliffe.
Did he yellow card anybody for taking
no,
a high
don't.
tackle?
It's Vets, no, never
but
do
Vets
that.
can't bend down below the waist. How are they going to play the new game?
Most of them definitely couldn't bend. Well, tackling was optional.
So we're going to lose them from the game because they can't bend down. We'll see how that one pans out over the next few weeks. And Jimmy Blumeyer takes the ball. Schoolman's kick gets Newcastle about 8 metres from the Connacht try line at that south end of the ground. Newcastle going with 6 men in the line. De Chavez up, down to ground. Carl Spurns in on him. Blumeyer gets in at the back, and the ball is now in Blumeyer's hands. He's on the back of the maul as it rumbles, well, sideways more than forwards. They're still 7 or 8 metres away, and offside. Penalty coming to Newcastle, and they try to use the blind side. Michael Young through a gap, try Newcastle. Newcastle flooded across from the left-hand side of the field to the right. Michael Young saw the defence go with them, planted his right foot, went off to the left, try Newcastle.
Yeah, Michael Young of old, wasn't it? That little sniping run got within, 7 metres, 8 metres. The space opened up, just drifted away from the breakdown far too quickly. Didn't get that rock in place, who shouldn't move until that ball's being passed. He drifted across. Lovely little try by Michael Young. Good start for the Falcons.
Forwards have been impressive so far. That line-out's working really well, isn't it? And De Chavez again, 2 line-outs, one with one hand. He took that 2 hands. Carl Ferns got on him straight away, and in the blink of an eye, Blumeyer had the ball in his hands at the back of the contact, and that was always going to be problems for Connacht.
It was, and Connacht, of course, have given away 3 penalties so far, which have allowed Newcastle to find that territory and had hardly any of the ball. I've got to say, the first game against Connacht, I thought the scoreline flattered them a little bit. There was some porous defence by the Falcons for one of the tries, but it was a tighter game than that scoreline might have suggested.
Well, the guys from Radio Galway were expecting Connacht to win tonight when we spoke to them before the game. They say they're playing some good rugby at the moment. But Newcastle ahead on the scoreboard after 7 minutes, and Schoolman's conversion is through the middle as well. So Tian Schoolman. Oh, I'm up, hang on.
Here we are. Dance cam. It's your record as well. It's your record, isn't it?
The horse is gone. Tian Schoolman gets the extras. I can sit back down again now. Save me energy for later.
Yep.
And that is 7-0 with 7 minutes gone, and it is fly half. Connor Fitzgerald, who's going to get the game restarted. Young man Fitzgerald, 25-year-old, looks younger than that, I've got to say. Ball's in the air. De Chavez takes that beautifully. And this afternoon, one of the Harlequins players went back and was held up by Wilco Lowe in exactly the same way that Mulipola held on to Sebastian De Chavez and didn't let him fall to the ground. That could have been really nasty if he'd gone over the top there, which he nearly did. Anyway, Newcastle getting a bit of order into the play. Michael Young's bringing the ball back, and he knocked that forward where the referee said it went backwards. Michael Young's rolling on the floor. And what's that a penalty for? I'm sorry, but I thought that was a penalty. It should have gone the other way.
I did as well. I thought an extra roll by Michael Young, but the referee, I think, deciding that they were offside beyond the back foot.
Okay.
I guess that was the signal. It was a very quick signal.
Well, Pierre-Baptiste Nunchy, or Nushi, should I say, N-U-C-H-Y, Nushi we're going to call him. And
you just want to practice your French accent, don't you?
Well, if I could get out there, it would be great, wouldn't it? But things conspiring against us. Tian Schoolman.
Oh, that's a bad miss.
Kick. He doesn't find his touch, and that ball is kept in field by Alex Wooten, who heads up towards the halfway line. The ball is in the hands of scrum half Colm Riley. Back to fly half Fitzgerald. Fullback Mac Hansen involved. Ball is quickly moved out to the right-hand side of the field, and that will be Adam Byrne, who the crowd will tell you that he's been taken into touch, and that is a Newcastle ball. And Orlando makes on he's going to take a quick one. Never in a million years was he going to do it. But it's a Newcastle line out on the left-hand side of the field on their own 10-metre line. And Newcastle's defence did well there. They drifted across from right to left, didn't they?
It did look for a second like they had men out on the wide edge, but Carreras did the right thing. He held his position, and then an absolutely crunching cover tackle, perfectly executed, round about the waist.
Well, there's 5 men coming into the line, but the referee has blown his whistle because...
Not from the mark?
Well, it's still going to line out again, so I'm not certain
Were Connacht encroaching into the gap between the two lines? Shouldn't that not be a free kick rather than...
It should be, you would have thought, but he seemed to move the line out up a wee bit and did exactly the
well,
same
exactly,
line
and Carl Ferns at the front of the line. It's in midfield eventually. That's Pete Lucock, who does what Pete Lucock does, just smashes into a waiting line of Connacht defenders. It's back to Tian Schoeman under big pressure, puts that ball down the middle of the field. It's got Mac Hansen running back. I think that's also Adam Byrne who's running back there as well. Gets ball in hand, gets out of the 22, runs back into Greg Peterson, taken down to ground 10 metres outside that 22 in midfield. Ball has moved on. Van der Vault and Orlando involved in the tackle on outside centre. Byron Ralston. And Connacht just taking their time. Con Riley's got some order in the play. Peterson under a bit of pressure, or puts a bit of pressure on Riley. But Van der Vault takes that ball cleanly, calls loudly. Everybody got out of his way. Michael Young's looking for space. That player was offside when he put the hands on Michael Young, and the referee's seen that straight away. They're giving a few penalties away here, Dean.
I think that's 5, Smithy. Yeah, not one against the Falcons so far.
And that is the newly haircutted Gary Graham makes that ball available. Alex Tate takes the ball, steps inside, taken down to the ground by Josh Murphy. Michael Young again just chips that ball through off the right foot and lands on top of his own player. I think he's injured his own player there. Is that Ben Stevenson that's down on the ground? I'm not certain who it is, to be honest.
It's Michael Young that's down. Ben Stevenson.
Ben Stevenson's the one that, Mickey Young chipped the ball through and then got taken out and fell on top of the player on the floor, and it's Michael Young who fell onto Ben Stevenson. Stevenson's just limping a bit as he walks away as well, and Tian Schoeman's coming across to see what's the matter with Michael Young. It doesn't look good, does it, to be honest? He's not. He's moving his knees around, but he doesn't look... There's no inclination there to get to his feet, that's for certain.
Just an awkward fall, wasn't it? I think more than anything else. When Ben Stevenson fell, he was pretty unprotected, so... he's getting a fair bit of treatment. It doesn't look like it's just winded or anything. It looks like it could be something worse than that.
Well, he's right in the way, and the referee's insisting that Tian Schoeman keeps the game moving. And Michael Young is lying on the touchline where the ball is... Well, the referee's decided he can't actually allow the player to go on.
You can't allow play to go on as an injured field on the injured player on the field of play.
Well, he's walking across there. Michael Young doesn't look well, does he? Those physios are around his neck area, and I don't know why, unless he just fell really awkwardly. But he's on his back. He's got his knees in the air. He's moving his knees around, so the bottom part of his body is moving. But they're keeping it. Well, he's sitting up now. Thank goodness for that. Now he pulls his socks up.
Yeah.
He just saw the doc coming on and thought, "Hey, I'm going to be all right here." She's not getting anywhere near me.
Oh, now come on, it's Rachel. You would always speak to her, surely.
He might know something I don't.
Where's the magic sponge?
There wasn't any magic sponge, but he's back to his feet, so he's milked it for every cent he could get out of it, I think. And
I tell you one thing, I've never seen Michael Young make so many breaks in the first few minutes of a game. Well, through a game actually. That's I think 3 he's made. He's looking for space, isn't he?
Well,
the
analysis might be that they leave space on the edges of the contact areas, and he's certainly looking to exploit it. And that's a much better kick by Schoeman. That's found a very safe touch, and it's about 3 or 4 metres inside the 22. And Newcastle trying to get pace into the game, aren't they? De Chavez joins the line. There's 5 men in the line. De Chavez gets up, down to Carl Ferns, around Dibblemeyer on the run round. Pass out to Michael Young. Michael Young to Schoeman. Big long pass to Alex Tate. Chips it through. Can Carreras get on it? He can't, because Mac Hansen picked up a bouncing ball and he turns and he's kicked it back, but just found Alex Tate. Tate straightens, gets into the 22, looks for space, can't find it, taken down the ground, wide out on the left, just inside that 22. Michael Young back to Peterson, on to Carl Ferns. Ferns taken down on the 22 line, left hand side of the posts, out to Orlando. Orlando tries to get through a gap. There's 3 Connacht players come around on, and the ball is bouncing around there. The referee's happy. Michael Young struggling to pick it up, gets it to Peterson, back in the midfield area. Peterson tries to freeze arms to get that ball away. Connacht player on the wrong side again. Another penalty given away. This is going to be caught territory, Dean, pretty quickly.
Well, that's I think 6, Smithy, so it won't be far off.
Carreras in a bit of space. Can he get away? No, he can't. Taken down by Mac Hansen. And Carreras just couldn't get away from the Connacht fullback. Into midfield, Peterson, flat pass from Schoeman, again into Orlando, moves it on to De Chavez to Ben Stevenson, into the 22, steps inside, back to Alex Tate, taken down the ground by second row, Liva Fafita.
Forward pass, he's gone back.
Okay, and what's the referee?
He's going back for the
original.
Back to
the advantage. I just thought he's got to his pocket for cards, that was all.
He has, he's got his hand in his pocket, it's going.
And who is that? Who is that? Number 5? That is number 5 that's leaving the field, so Josh Murphy is looked a bit crestfallen there, but he's the one that's jogging off towards the Richard Arnold Memorial Sin Bin, and he's stopping to have a word with the referee. And
he said it wasn't me, sir.
It can't be mistaken identity. He's 8'6".
He's massive, isn't he? Are you staying on the field? It's not him that's going off.
Who is it that's going off?
It's the
outside centre.
Yeah.
But he couldn't have made that mistake, surely to goodness. Byron Ralston, the
No,
22-year-old from Western Force originally, is about 5'2".
Was he not speaking to Gerard Butler there? But he was not Butler. No, I think
it was the second row. It was the second row. That was Josh Murphy, unless they've changed the numbers around. Everybody told me that the teams were as announced. And he'd spoken to the captain previously, I'm being told. And off he went. Newcastle put the line out, or put the ball in the corner, about 10 metres from the Connacht try line. They're ahead 7-0. McGuigan, that's a Freudian slip, isn't it? Blamire feeds that line. De Chavez gets up, brings the ball down. Blamire is on the back of that maul now as it rumbles forward. Gary Graham adds his weight. Michael Young is just behind the maul. It's rumbling forward, and Michael Young's wanting more bodies in there. Pete Lucock and Matthias Orlando add their weight to it. Newcastle haven't got many men out, but this maul is still rumbling forward, and it's going to be a try. They're across the line. Orlando gets the ball down, and that was a well-worked try by Newcastle. And for all Connacht's effort, it just kept moving and moving and moving.
Yeah, Pax joining in early. I mean, again, unfortunately, it's not Jamie Blamire, so it spoiled his record a wee bit because he was doing the McGuigan for a couple of games earlier this season. But yeah, a well-structured, well-worked try. Bodies getting in. It looked like it did Stimmy, but just got enough forward momentum, didn't he? The leg drive was good. Good spot, I think, in the end by Orlando to find that little bit of space on the edge to dive over.
Well, 11 minutes of the game gone. I put 7 minutes down for Michael Young's try, but I'm sure it must have been less than that. And that timing of that try. And 11 minutes for this try. We've got a 12-0 game. Oh, why couldn't we have played like this earlier in the competition?
Absolutely. If we played like this away at Connacht, then they would have been in with real. It's early doors yet, but with no real shout of. Well, they would have gone through, wouldn't they?
Well, I can't remember the team out in Connacht, but De Chavez is playing the rugby of his life.
Yes.
Carl Ferns is back from being injured. Philip van der Vault is back from being injured. It is a different team, isn't it, in composition and experience, and that's no disrespect to the lads that played out there, but this is a much more experienced team.
It is, yeah. There's a lot of heft, there's a lot of power, there's a lot of strength, and there's an awful lot of experience out in that park as well, and at the moment they're playing some really exciting, really good, really accurate rugby.
Tian Schoeman gets the extras, as you'd expect, straight in front of the posts, or just to the left-hand side of those posts. Ball boy jogs on, gives the ball to fly-half Connor Fitzgerald, and sprints off again to take his place just in front of us, in front of the west stand. Ball's in the air from the fly-half, end over end, taken by Alex Tate, moved on to Carl Ferns, taken down to ground, still inside Newcastle's 22, and that was hooker Shane Delahunt that took him down to ground. In fact, it was Finlay Beelum, the tight head prop. Not a good kick from Michael Young, fielded by Mac Hansen. Well, Newcastle, Gary Graham got down to tackle him before he even got near him, and he just managed to step round the outside of him. Ball is moved back to hooker Shane Delahunt, takes the contact, he's still moving forward. Scrum half Riley is there, moves it across to Fitzgerald, flat pass to the man that thought he was going off, Josh Murphy. Connacht playing with 14 men at the moment, into the hands of eventually full-back Mac Hansen from inside centre, Cathal Ford, playing the game 15 metres inside Newcastle's half, right-hand side of the field. Fitzgerald kicks it, that's going to run dead, I think. That has run dead, and that's going to be a scrummage back to Newcastle where the kick was taken, which will have been about 50 metres, as I say, inside the Newcastle half of the field. Referee's thinking that he moved forward a little bit, so no, he's coming back, and it's going to be a scrummage, and he's given it, well, maybe he's giving Newcastle a bit of an advantage there. He's probably taking it 12 metres inside the Newcastle half rather than 15, but it's going to be Newcastle's ball.
Yeah, it's going off his assistant referee. He's the guy who would mark that, I think. When he's judging the kick, he'll give the input to the referee about where the mark should be.
And you look down through that Newcastle pack, that's a strong, it's experienced, but it's strong. You've got Mooley Pola and Trevor Davison, who are very experienced now. Trevor just played his 100th game for Newcastle just a few weeks ago. Jamie Blamire, England international, in at hooker. De Chavez and Peterson in the second row. Carl Ferns at number 8, and you've got Philip van der Vault and Gary Graham on the flanks. That is a strong Newcastle pack out there, and they are really testing the Connacht boys as a plane comes into Newcastle International Airport. Remember that day when we were going to Connacht and we spent all day in the airport?
Yes, it was
to
wonderful.
Go nowhere.
We did.
To go absolutely nowhere. We had to do the game the next day from the luxury of the BBC Radio Newcastle Pink Palace studio off a little TV screen. Well, we're at Kingston Park tonight. It's absolutely freezing. It wasn't as cold as this inside.
No, that was one advantage.
It was
not the only one, but it was an advantage.
The scrums are brought together by our referee, Pierre-Baptiste Mouchy. Michael Young at Colfern's feet, moves it to Schoeman. Schoeman puts his right foot through it. That's got Adam Byrne drifting back. Right-footed kick, that's going to go straight into touch. That looked so uncomfortable. The right foot of Adam Byrne, if that's his chosen foot, that looked so uncomfortable.
It almost was ungainly, wasn't it? The kick was a mile out as well. It wasn't even close, was it? So just skewed off the side of the boot. And at the minute, Connacht have had barely any ball. They've had one flicker of an attacking opportunity, but constantly coughing up penalties. Newcastle have just been really incisive and accurate in everything they've done.
Kieran Booth was just leaving the field, so he must have come on for an HIA when somebody's gone up. But I think the HIA has obviously been passed, and they are restored back to full complement. And Connacht win that line out. We go back up towards the 10-metre line, back to Fitzgerald under pressure from Michael Young. Big high left-footed kick has got Ben Stevenson underneath it, taken down to ground by Alex Wooten. Ball is on the floor. Ben Stevenson's making it available. The ball is there, and Gary Graham is telling the referee the ball is there. Michael Young bends into the contact, picks and moves it to Peterson. Ducks his right shoulder, takes the contact, gets down to ground. His knees are on the floor. In fact, his whole body's on the floor now. 10 metres back inside Newcastle's half. 12 metres from the right-hand touchline. Michael Young gets the ball in the air. That's got Fitzgerald underneath it. Safe under the high ball. Moved on to Mac Hansen, who steps back off his right foot to the left. And ball is going to be on the floor. Newcastle have nicked it. Mooley-Paul are in at scrum half. Ball moved on to Blamire. It's out to Schoeman. Flat pass. Well, was that a knock forward? That's a penalty to Newcastle. That could be another yellow card if the referee deems that was a deliberate knock-on. Michael Young playing the advantage to Mooley-Paul, into the hands of Schoeman. Out to De Chavez, up to halfway. Out to Peterson. Peterson to Ben Stevenson, but he's got 3 Connacht players lined up to bring him down to ground. Referee must have played advantage over, I would have thought. And the ball is moved on to Gary Graham from Colferns. He gets absolutely wiped out by Jared Butler, captain of Connacht, on the 10-metre line of Connacht in midfield. Schoeman to nobody. That's bouncing around Orlando, where the referee does come back eventually for the advantage. And goodness me, he played a long time there.
He played, what, 3 phases, Smitty, and it went pretty much backwards, didn't it, from where it
Well, it went forward 2 phases, and the third phase went backwards.
Went back, so I think he decided that was sufficient to go back for the penalty. I think one more phase he might have said advantage over if Newcastle were advancing down the field, and I think they're very lucky not to lose a play at the bin if that was.
Well, I'm going to say, Michael Young, I haven't got the ref mic, but Michael Young has said to the referee that was deliberate knock-on.
Yeah.
Or was that a deliberate knock-on, sir? Yeah. It's probably the way he's phrasing it.
It's certainly, you go for one hand with the ball, then almost certainly it's going to be a knock-on. It depends if the action is downwards, or whether there's a valid attempt to catch the ball, I think is the definition now.
Well, Schoeman puts the ball into the night sky above Kingston Park, and it finds a touch. Again, not a long touch. He didn't really go for it. It's about 2 metres outside the 22. Blamire's got a towel, wipes the ball. Newcastle go in with 5 men. Peterson's at 2, De Chavez is at 3, Van der Vault is at 4.
The referee's not happy again.
He's not happy again because Blamire is not on the mark, and he's complaining that Connacht are moving into the gap. And Blamire is just moving away, and Connacht are just following him. And what's he going to do this time? Well, he hasn't moved, in fairness. And there's a lot of movement in the Newcastle line. It's to the back. Van der Vault gets up, 2 hands, down to Michael Young. Good take in the line now. Good throw from Blamire. And on to Colferns from Pete Lucock. Back to Gary Graham. Graham can't get beyond the final defender. Ball's on the floor. Michael Young moves it to Schoeman. Schoeman to Orlando. Orlando looks for the space, finds the man. That man is Alex Wooten. Takes him down to ground. That's a high tackle.
Yep.
The assistant referee's flag is out. The arm is out from the referee. And there's a bit of aggravation. I thought it was aggravation, but there's not. It's a pass to Carreras. Can he get round the outside? And he can get round the outside. Then he comes inside. What a try by Matteo Carreras. He is on fire this year, but will they go back for the high tackle and more penalties to Connacht? And should that be cards?
It could be, if again the protocols are followed and the contact was high and there was not any mitigation, then it will be a yellow card. It could be worse.
Is protocol's your favourite word?
It is. There's no other way to describe it. You go through the mechanism of the decision-making process. That's a bit longer than protocol.
He's not doing anything, is he? He's just walked back to where the ball is. The assistant referee's arm came out immediately that Alex Wooten went in for the tackle. It could only have been for a high tackle.
Yeah, and I think he's speaking to his TMO, is he? Is he allowing the kick to go ahead? Because whatever
I don't think
happens,
anything's going to happen. I don't think anything is going to happen, mate.
If he's just decided that was enough advantage and it's been reviewed, which it might have been reviewed pretty quickly.
I wish we had the ref link. This is so much easier when you can hear what the officials are actually saying. Even if it is in French, we can make a good guess, couldn't we?
It'd be interesting to find out whether he gives Newcastle a penalty from the restart as well.
Bet you're a fiver he doesn't.
I bet you, I won't take that bet.
And Schoeman's got the ball on the tee. He's brought the ball to about a metre inside the 22. Maybe 17 metres from that left-hand touchline. Carreras managed to get a long way around the in-goal area towards the posts. Schoeman taking his time. Been dead-eye Dick so far, and he steps forward, strikes it, and he is still dead-eye Dick.
We didn't really talk about the finish by Carreras, did we? But exceptional again. He got himself on a one-on-one, a bit of pace, a little bit of a handoff as well, just to push himself away from the player rather than an aggressive handoff, and just a brilliant finish. Brilliant finish. This man's on fire. The step at the end, exceptional as well.
This competition is strange. Last weekend, Connacht beat Brive 61-5.
Yes.
Cardiff absolutely taking Newcastle apart in the Arms Park, something like 41-5 or whatever it was.
42-10.
42-10. Well, Newcastle didn't do well there. Alex Tate, the ball is picked up by inside centre Cathal Ford. They are camped on Newcastle's try line. Are they across that try line? Referee's penalty against Newcastle. That's the first penalty they've conceded in the game. And Connacht pick and drive up the left-hand side. Can they get that ball down? They're over the line. They can get it down. That's a try to Connacht. The point I was half made when they scored that try, Dean, is the fact that Newcastle gets stuffed off Cardiff, Brive gets stuffed off Connacht, yet this afternoon, well, just before this game started, Brive win in Brive against Cardiff, and Newcastle are taking Connacht to pieces.
Yeah,
you couldn't write this, could you?
You couldn't. I mean, it's not teams travelling. It must be the respective strengths of what clubs are putting out. I would imagine Newcastle, as we said before, have gone pretty strong tonight and are absolutely dominant. Until that drop kick by Alex Tate from the kick-off, which allowed Connacht to sneak in after a couple of phases. So, but Newcastle have been all over them this first 25 minutes.
That try for Connacht might unlock a little bit from them. But did anybody see who scored? Is it the hooker Delahunt that got over there, or?
Yeah, my son is saying it was the hooker.
The hooker, Delahunt.
Oh, he's not.
No, all right.
All right.
We're going to speak to Ed at half-time. Ed's working out in China and has been for 10 years. Dean's son, who's back for a few weeks. And we're going to talk about rugby out there. That's a lovely kick by Conor Fitzgerald.
And I've got to say, there's a fair few Connacht fans in here, Smithy. When I was wandering around, there's a lot of green that's not Falcons green. They've done well to
the radio guy said there's a lot of people who have travelled over for the game, for the weekend in Newcastle. And, it's obviously the second or third time they've been over to Newcastle with games in this European Challenge Cup. And they enjoy themselves, and why not?
Now, why not? What's not to enjoy about Newcastle?
Exactly.
There's probably more to enjoy in Newcastle than is in Connacht, to be absolutely fair.
I wouldn't say that to them.
No, I wouldn't.
Does anybody know who scored that try? We'll find out as soon as we can. Schoeman's going to get the game restarted. 22 minutes of the first half gone. Newcastle ahead 21-7. And that ball is recovered by Connacht on their 22, 15 metres from the left-hand touchline. Colm Riley is struggling to get that ball to the back of the caterpillar with his left foot. Ball's in the air. Alex Tate is underneath it. Tate's mistake that resulted in the try for Connacht onto Carreras, who tries to step away from Connacht defenders. He's held onto by tight head prop Finlay Beelum. Ball is back with Schoeman onto Tate. Tate tries to get through a gap that closes immediately. Loose head prop Dennis Buckley's the one that gets hands on Alex Tate, and that's got to be. That just looked a mess. There's Connacht players coming up on both sides, but the referee must have deemed that ball was out of the contact area, and Newcastle have managed to recover it. Michael Young's at the bottom of it. Trevor Davison gets the ball from T and Schoeman, just ducks his shoulders into Newcastle. Michael Young is off, and Josh Barton is on, so for an HIA. So Michael Young is off, and Josh Barton it'll be who's on the field, and Barton's the one that puts his right foot through that. Underneath it is fullback Mac Hansen, who tries to step around the outside. Ben Stevenson can't do so. Stevenson is on the floor. The ball is moved back to Delahunt. Newcastle bring Delahunt down. Game being played 10 metres from the left-hand touchline and 5 metres outside the Connacht 22. Ball's in the air from scrum half Colm Riley. Alex Tate under a little bit of pressure, but can't get away from the first man. That is the open side, Conor Oliver, who is an Island 20s player who came from Munster in 2020. Brings Newcastle's aging fullback down to ground. Sure he won't mind me saying that, as Josh Barton gets that ball in the air. And again, that's got Mac Hansen underneath it. Hansen looks to run again. but that ball is bouncing around and Ben Stevenson drops on it. Is the referee playing advantage to Newcastle? I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yes,
but,
his hands out, Smithy.
Is that a penalty advantage or a scrum
Looks
advantage?
like,
Into the hands of Ben Stevenson. Stevenson taken down. We're going to high tackle again by Alex Wooten. That's the second one that he's made. And again, no malice in it really, but and he's claimed to the assistant referee that Ben Stevenson was going down. But according to the protocols, that doesn't matter, does it? Ball's in the hands of Matthias Orlando. Out to Pete Lucock. Steps inside. Taken down the ground. 12 metres from the Connacht try line. Ball moved back to Gary Graham. Legs snapped from under him. Ball moved on from Barton again. The Molly Pola smashes into Connacht defenders. Barton fights his way towards the ball. Takes it towards the left. Interception. Penalty is coming to Newcastle. And that is another high tackle by Alex Wooten. And that has got to be something that the referee does something about, Dean, because that is the second one. When Newcastle scored the try, it all seemed to get forgotten in that moment there, but that's the second high tackle.
Yeah, I am assuming, we're not linked up to, as you said, to the referee, but I am assuming the TMO must have had a look. It was a high tackle when that play was carrying on. It depends what the assistant referee's fed in. I guess the TMO will have a quick look.
Well, the referee saying that Ben Stevenson was ducking into it. He's agreeing with Alex Wooten, and that's fair enough if that's what they saw.
That's the mitigation, yeah.
That's the mitigation, but that's two now. I'll go back to a Bataillon last week.
Yeah.
That's the problem, isn't it?
It is a problem. The issue is if a player dips into the tackle, the ball carrier dips into the tackle, that's the mitigation. There's no mitigation.
It wasn't last week.
Yeah, well, the ball carrier didn't really dip into the tackle. He stayed pretty upright, and the Albertino had the choice to dip down and didn't.
Right, okay. This could be rumbling on and weeks on
It
car
could,
journeys to
couldn't
come. I hope the next 4 weeks we forget about it before we have to go down to Bristol.
I'll change the subject.
Yeah, well, we need to. But will there be something else the RFU have done that we need to argue about before we get to that point, I'm sure. Newcastle line out 10 metres from the Connacht try line. And it is de Chavez that comes forward. And he's up and takes it again. Ball is down. Molly Pola gets on it. And Newcastle driving towards that line. Trevor Davison, Newcastle truck and trailer.
Yep.
In the old-fashioned way that we play with Colts, truck and trailer, and Trevor Davison looks absolutely crestfallen that he's not allowed to get over that line and score the try. And
right decision,
saying obstruction. Yeah, I think you're probably all right. Three men broke away at the front of that line. Trevor Davison was one of them, but two men were in front of him, and maybe they got in front of him, then he joined on the back of them. That's the way it looks. As Big Trev just trudges his way back to where this line out is going to be taken from. And that is Alex Tate that gathers the ball, but he's off the field. The assistant referee on this side of the field is going to put his flag in the way to indicate the Connacht line out, 9 metres inside Newcastle's half. We've got 26, nearly 27 minutes of the game gone. Gary Graham's pleading with the referee to get numbers, and they say they're going to go with 5. The call is given to Shane Delahunt by Dennis Buckley. 5 men in that line, a lot of movement. That's straight down the Connacht side, but referee's happy. Ball is moved on to Delahunt on a line back inside. That is inside centre Cathal Ford, who's absolutely levelled by Newcastle's defence. And it was Seamus Hurley Langton blindside. It was in the backs in the centre area, and he's the one that was levelled by Newcastle as he put a lot of pace on the ball, and that is a good break by Colm Riley. Showed a clean pair of heels there to Newcastle, but he's brought down the ground eventually just outside the 22. Right hand side of the field, Molly Pola trying to rip that ball away, can't do so. De Chavez gets involved in the follow-up tackle. Ball's on the floor. Riley moves it across to Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald looks for loose head prop Dennis Buckley on the 22 in front of the post. Riley moves it on to Fitzgerald again into the hands of, well, eventually it's into the hands of Josh Murphy through Mac Hansen's hands into the 22. Are they going to keep it moving towards this left-hand touchline? The ball is there, the referee says. They are. It's into inside centre. Cathal Ford. Carl Fearns involved in the tackle. Back to blindside. Seamus Hurley Langton playing the game within a 2 metre channel inside Newcastle's 22. Ball moved on again, and the ball is back to Riley. Takes the play towards the right hand side of the field. Fitzgerald to Hansen. Big high pass that's got Adam Byrne running back on the line into midfield, and that is into open water. His second row, Josh Murphy, taken down by Carl Fearns. Riley moves it to Fitzgerald in midfield onto Lucette prop Dennis Buckley yet again. Newcastle's defence, Dean, is pretty strong at the moment. It's not a kiss of death, but it's pretty strong. And Connacht are moving the ball left and right, but they're not making an awful lot of progress up the field.
Just starting to make a little bit of incremental yards up the middle all of a sudden, but they've had possession, over 12, 13 phases now?
Got to be, and Newcastle's defence is being pressed. There's penalties coming against that defensive line, wide out on the left-hand side as they defend the north end of the ground. Connacht playing the advantage. Riley's in there, moving it back towards the touchline. McHanson, lovely pass out to the wing. I think that is the winger. Alex Wooten come off this left wing over to the right hand side of the field, as the referee will still be playing advantage. Philip van der Vault involved in the tackle. Van der Vault taken off by Connacht players. McHanson goes back towards the right hand side. Ball is on the floor. Referee still playing advantage. Connacht pressing the Newcastle line. It's still in Connacht hands. They've gone through multiple phases. The penalty advantage is still being played by our French referee. Ball is back to Josh Murphy. Ducks his shoulder into the contact again. How many phases can he play, Dean?
Well, it's when he decides his advantage is over. You don't want to stop a side that's sort of 4 metres, 5 metres from the try line, Smithy, from playing.
But he can only leave it a certain amount of time before he says you've had enough chance.
Yeah, he's saying another advantage, I think, coming now, Smithy, for another offside.
All right, okay. Well, they are literally sniffing the whitewash. Or Connacht. It's 21-7 at the moment. Connacht camped on Newcastle's line, and they're across that line. They think they've got the ball down, and the referee agrees. And the try is given, and Newcastle, from being 21-0 up, they're suddenly in the game, aren't they?
You certainly are. Connacht just showed that must have been, 20, 25 phases, I would imagine. Really patient in terms of recycling the ball. Nothing fancy, driving the ball through the middle. They worked their way and got within sniffing distance of that try line. I think there were 2 penalty advantages coming anyway, and eventually burrowed the way over. So just brute force, wasn't it, Smithy? But well directed and very well executed.
Well, Beelam's the one that got the try there for Connacht. Finlay Beelam, tight head prop, and it was all close quarter stuff, and that's on the half hour.
And I've got to say, this has been a really entertaining game of rugby. I mean, Newcastle all over Connacht like a rash in that first sort of 20 minutes or so of the game. Looked to be comfortable. Drop kick from restart. Connacht back in the game, and then the last sort of 5, 6, 7 minutes, they've just started to show what they can do.
But we went from one end of the field with Newcastle score a try but disallow for truck and trailer, and within 2 minutes we're down the other end of the field, and Connacht have narrowed the gap, and it is narrowed even more because Fitzgerald gets the conversion. We've got a 21-14 game, and I've got to say, Dean, after 20 minutes I never expected to see that.
I didn't. Newcastle looked odds on to post a really big win, but of course it's a one converted try game now, Smithy, so it's wide open.
31 minutes gone at Kingston Park. It'll be Newcastle Falcons' last involvement in this year's EPCR European Challenge Cup. It's Pool A, and Newcastle sit proudly at the bottom. No wins from 3 games. Hopefully they'll get a win tonight. But Connacht are already guaranteed a place in the round of last 16. Game has restarted. And that is inside centre, Cathal Ford, that brings it in. And for Connacht, number 11 is off for an HIA. So Alex Wooten is off the field for an HIA. Number 23 is on, Tom Farrell. Ball is in the air. Alex Tate comes forward, jumps, takes it, spins, gets away from the first Connacht. And what a Newcastle penalised for there.
Is it sitting? Oh, yeah, getting in front.
Van der Vault looks absolutely,
I'm not certain how he
gobsmacked.
He must have got ahead of Alex Tate before Alex Tate hit the ground, I guess, and sealed him off.
Well,
odd decision.
Yeah, well, okay. He's been good all night, the referee, so let's not get too colicky because he gives one decision that goes against Newcastle. But
no, he's probably spot on right.
Connacht have got the initiative, haven't they?
They certainly have.
That's Fitzgerald that takes play up the left-hand touchline. And again, a conservative kick, really, not a lot of distance, but he didn't have much of an angle to play with. Trevor Davison takes his position at the front of the Newcastle line. Gary Graham again runs into midfield because it's going to be a 5-man line. The call has been given to hooker Shane Delahunt by Dennis Buckley again. And there's a lot of movement in that line, but it's going to go to the back, and that is taken down into the hands of Conor Oliver. A lot of aggression from outside centre, Byron Ralston, as he smashes into Newcastle defenders. And Newcastle penalised again. Trevor Davison adjudged to have come offside, and Connacht have got the gander up, Dean. They really are on the front foot, and Newcastle are struggling.
They certainly are, Smithy, under a lot of pressure. Connacht now just controlling the play, controlling the ball. Newcastle starting to leak penalties left, right and centre. Simple decisions given away as well, easy penalties.
There's a lot of aggression suddenly come into the way Connacht are playing the game. They are taking the contact on their terms. Newcastle are hanging on. Ball has moved on to Riley, to Fitzgerald. That's on to second row. Lever Fafita. Another penalty coming against Newcastle. And Blamire has been, well, he could be in trouble there for that. And Blamire was looking at the referee with his hands on the ball when the penalty had already been given.
I think the referee said that was all right, actually, and he's gone back to the original penalty because you would have thought he would have given the penalty more directly in front of the sticks from where Jamie Blamire was. But of course he'll ask, do you want the penalty there or back where the original offence was? So I assume Blamire was all right.
Connacht are just up the ante, haven't they? They're looking just so much more aggressive in the contacts, and the pace of the game has just risen.
It's just a mirror image of what Newcastle did in the first 20 minutes, Smithy, isn't it? They've just, as you've said, they've upped the ante. They've been very physical. They're controlling the rugby ball. They aren't particularly being flash with anything they do, but they're making incremental yards from in a very sort of hard way, aren't they? Hard-fashioned, hard-nosed way.
Well, 5 metre line out, and they've gone with the full line this time, and that is taken by Fafita at the front. The big men group around, and obstruction by Connacht, and that's a let-off for Newcastle, and a little bit of an opportunity for them to get some order back into the play.
It's odd, we see this more and more often in games, don't we? I remember seeing last weekend, I think there were 2 or 3 games even where the referee penalised people for that. You can't get ahead of the lifter, you can't be in front of him when you bring him to ground and seal him off.
And Nelly was able to say, "Don't punch him, Gary." There,
Yeah.
I haven't said that since
he's said that for a while. No.
And
he's been very well behaved.
Well, he was getting involved with Lever Fafita there, and I don't think they were exchanging recipes, that's for certain. But it all ended happily.
Be a recipe for haggis, wouldn't it, from Gary?
I'm not sure what it would be.
Oh, missed again.
And missed another kick, and that is taken by Byron Ralston on to Mac Hansen. Hansen is running, and that's a big long pass, but it's forward. And a referee has picked that up, and we were directly in line with that. If we got that one wrong, there's something wrong with our eyes.
Oh yeah.
Because we were literally directly in line with the passer, and that just drifted forward. You can see what he's trying to do. It was a long pass, but it just spun gradually and forward.
It's really difficult when you're running sideways, though, isn't it, to deliver a ball accurately? He was moving sideways.
Running's difficult for me, mate, these days. I don't mind passing the ball when I'm running.
Yeah, that was the problem, wasn't he? Starting to move laterally. The winger just probably overran it a little bit as well, and off his wrong hand. I mean, it was a lovely pass, apart from that it was forward by 2 yards.
Josh Barton's been on that field quite a bit of time now, hasn't he?
I don't think Michael Young's coming back on.
No, I don't think he is. And Newcastle are making a change, and that is Greg Peterson that's coming off.
Really?
And I think that is that Pedro Rubiolo?
Yeah.
It is number 20, Pedro Rubiolo, who's coming on the field. This could be interesting.
Well, that's very early for Peterson to go off generally.
He must have a knock.
He must have a knock.
Or an HI. Well, he's not going down the tunnel. I think he just must have a knock, and they're trying to protect him, I would guess. But Rubiolo has come into the back row, which means that Philip van der Vault will have gone into the second row.
Big, powerful man, but needs to control his aggression a wee bit, I think, doesn't he?
Well, he settled down at Cardiff after the ignominious start that he had.
Yeah.
Free kick to Newcastle, taken by Barton. On to Schoeman. Schoeman on to Orlando, who ducks into the contact. Can't get away from the second man, releases the ball on the floor. Barton is there. Connacht really fight that offside line and do pretty well to stay onside. The ball is back with Carl Ferns. And referee is just patting Josh Barton on the back and saying get on with it. He's bringing the ball to the back of the Caterpillar, and the referee is penalty against Connacht. They thought that ball was out. They must have been watching the Harlequins game this afternoon. Did you see it?
I didn't know.
There's been a couple of instances over this weekend where players, Danny Kerr thought the ball was in the contact, and Elsterbeth thought it was out, and Elsterbeth ran through, picked it up and scored a try, and Danny Kerr was like, what?
Well, yeah,
and it stood. It was given. It said Joe Mulred broke his bind, and so it wasn't. The contact was false. It was broken.
There was no
maul, ruck.
Well, it'd be a ruck, wouldn't it?
Yeah, on the floor.
So, yeah, I've seen a few of them, and I think it's something that coaches are focusing in on.
Yep.
About taking that count. Is it out, sir? And the referee's got to answer yes or no.
Well, I remember playing with Ken Witherington, bless him, who's passed away a few years ago. I was playing for Bladen and Ken was refereeing, and I said to him, is that out? And he said, pick it up and I'll tell you.
Did you? And was it?
I did, it wasn't. And, yeah, I think he won that one. Yeah. Newcastle going with 6 men in the line. And it is Josh Barton who's at the front of the line.
I don't think he'll be getting it.
He said he could, well, I'm being told the referee said he could play the ball but not push the player. And there's a lot of movement there. It's taken down by De Chavez to Carl Ferns, moves it on to Barton, back inside to Blamaya, who just gets scragged, taken down the ground. Josh Barton, flat pass to Trevor Davison, moves it on to Gary Graham. Trevor shouldn't have really moved that on. Referee eventually has given the knock on, and the crowd say it went backwards, but the referee says it went forwards. Trevor shouldn't have tried to pass that on, should he?
No,
should
it was
he
too tight, wasn't it? He just needed him to latch and barrel forward with the player in close contact. Smithy would have been a better option. Just too tight together.
Yep, they were, and you could see the cogs going around.
It was probably forward as well, actually.
Yeah, well, the wiggly wires didn't quite get the work there, did they? And on nearly 39 minutes. We've got just over a minute of this first half to go. It's flown by, man. I tell you, it's been a really interesting game of rugby.
It's been a really attractive game of rugby as well. If you here as a neutral watching, you would have thoroughly enjoyed the entertainment. And we've had 35 points in the game in the first nearly 40 minutes coming up now, isn't it? Yeah, 39 minutes gone, and it's really evenly balanced.
The scrummage has been taken about 7 or 8 metres inside the Connacht 22, directly in front of the posts at the south end of the ground. These new floodlights at Kingston Park make a heck of a difference. It's lovely lit playing surface now. Back to Fitzgerald from scrum half Conor Riley. It's a nice left-footed kick by the 25-year-olds, taking play up the left-hand touchline.
So Newcastle will get one last opportunity
First half,
to
get the bonus point try.
Yeah.
And it is going to be a line out on the 10-metre line of Connacht. And the line has been set by our referee, Pierre-Baptiste Nushi. Blamaya gets the ball from the ball boy. And the towel from the physio. Newcastle having a big discussion. Gary Graham is going to the front of that line. There's going to be 5 men in it. De Chavez is going to join the line at the end. He pushes Trevor Davison forward. That's in the air, taken by De Chavez. Down to Carl Ferns. Ferns, Newcastle drive forward. Blamaya involved now. Ball in hand. Newcastle really are pushing the buttons. Blamaya into space, trying to get the ball away. Again, knocked forward as Blamaya tried to push the ball out. And now an opportunity for Connacht. And that is Orlando that manages to get a tackle in. Carreras is sniffing about on the outside as the ball bounced around, but Adam Byrne drops down on that ball as a chip over the top.
Oh, wow.
And that is it's bounced back, and it's bounced back into the hands of Tom Farrell. Connacht still on the offensive. Ball moved from Riley. It's bouncing around, but it's picked up by, I think that's Cathal Ford, who has to take the contact of Newcastle on the 22 in midfield. Riley is now going to feed that ball it's backwards to Fitzgerald. Enough is enough, say the Connacht players, and that is into the stand into the car park next to the east stand. And that has been a really interesting half of rugby where Newcastle got themselves ahead on the scoreboard. They've had at least 2 opportunities to extend their side of the score sheet, but they haven't managed to take it. And Connacht have managed to work themselves back into the game. It's 21-14.
It's been a thrill, to be quite honest. It's been entertaining, Smithy. It's been end-to-end at times. Again, that man Carreras pulling out the rabbit from the hat with a try of the highest quality, and Connacht, as you've said, worked their way back in the game. I hate to say this, but it was a game. There was half or 2 halves, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Newcastle dominant for 20, then Connacht just working their way back into the game, being really patient, quite belligerent in their attack, fairly narrow in what they did, and bludgeoning their way over, easing their way back in, and a decent second half set up really well by that attractive first half.
Do you think as Newcastle just switched off a little bit, is that what allowed Connacht back into that game, or did Connacht for a period just switch into an extra gear, just found the extra gear they needed, and just pushing more buttons than they were earlier?
I think it was more Connacht deciding to come out and play. The game was getting away from them. They knew how to maintain possession, work some territory, get in the right areas. They did that very, very effectively. When you put a side under pressure, you start to leak penalties. That's what happened for both teams, wasn't it? For both clubs, when sides got in the 22 and started to exert that pressure, it became more and more difficult for Newcastle to avoid a try being scored against them. The first try, obviously, Alex Tate mistake. He doesn't make many. He's not made many in his career, but a drop ball that gave him that field position, and they benefited from that. And just that impetus, that drive was sucked away from Newcastle by a pretty clever play by Connacht, I thought.
But that last 15 minutes of the half, Newcastle have got to, well, they will, I know that, but they've got to realise they're in a game of rugby in the second half, and although they got 21-0 up on the scoreboard, it's 21-14. This game could go either way. It's only a one-score game, and Connacht are going to come out all guns blazing, aren't they?
You would expect both sides to come out absolutely blasting, wouldn't it, to be quite honest, because the next goal is so important. Connacht get it, they're right back in the game, they could draw level. Newcastle get it, 2 scores ahead. That's a nice, comfortable cushion to have. Still going to have to work really, really hard. I've just really enjoyed that first 40 minutes, and Newcastle could do a win with this competition. They're not going to progress, and there isn't any momentum that we can speak of. As I said, there's a long gap now between the end of this game and we'll ignore the Southern Knights fixtures, where they're going to be very much an academy squad, I guess, with 1 or 2 older players sprinkled in there, but there's a long layoff, so they want to stop this or finish this competition with a decent win.
Well, we've got an opportunity. Your son come back from China, so if you can hand Ed the microphone, and on long car journeys you're always talking about the rugby that's played out there, and it's a technical thing, son. You need to put it at your lip. There we go.
Right,
so
there we go.
you're there.
I am.
And your dad talks to me about sort of what you're doing out there. But why are you in China? You've been there 10 years now, haven't you?
I have, well, 9 years now, yeah. I graduated from university, and then I pretty much just got a job saying, do you want to come and teach for 10 months in a kindergarten? And I thought, yeah, may as well go. I've got nothing else planned. Turned up, and I've been there 9 years now, so.
So you say teach, is that teaching English to Chinese students? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, pretty much. English, it's at an international school, so it's English, maths, PE, all sorts of stuff, so.
All right, so a broad cross-section of work. What sort of age group of kids you're dealing with?
I'm teaching primary, so year 4, year 5.
Yeah. And you changed schools, didn't you, halfway through? We'll talk about that in a rugby sense shortly, but you're now in Shanghai.
Near Shanghai, a place called Chongzhou.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're enjoying that?
I am. It's been, well, we'll talk about it in a bit. It's been pretty difficult the last 3 years.
Yeah, I bet.
But for the most part, I've enjoyed my time there, yeah.
And we're here to talk about rugby more than anything else, Ed. So you played rugby here. Presumably your dad was from Northern, so presumably you played your youth rugby over here in Northern.
I did. My dad was actually my coach for a lot of my time.
And you still play?
I am, yeah.
So what when you went over there, is rugby sort of attached to the school? Is it the expat community where rugby is flourishing?
When I first went over, I lived in Wuhan before it was famous, and the first thing I thought about doing when I got there was I need to try and find a rugby club. So I turned up to the country, I couldn't speak a word of the language, I didn't know anyone, so I thought it would be a great way to meet people, a great way to make friends and just be a bit better than just being on my own. So yeah, turned up, found Wuhan Baiji Rugby Club. And then it's just a great opportunity to like travel around the country, meet people and see things.
So is it the expat community that basically make up the rugby clubs that you play against in the sort of competition that you play in?
Yeah, it's all expat focus based what we do. There's basically like two divisions. There's the Chinese side and like the expat side. And we barely deal with the Chinese side, to be honest. They kind of do their own thing. And the expats kind of do their own thing as well.
Okay. China, I've been to China for work reasons, not very much, but I've been. It's a big place.
It is.
So how far do you travel with the rugby that you play?
Depends where we're going. Sometimes you have to take like an overnight bus or take a flight from one end of the country to the other. It can be anywhere from like a few hours to Shanghai to about 8 hours down to Guangzhou or something like that.
So a big commitment by everybody, because all these people will be working. So
exactly, yeah. So, but people enjoy it, don't they? And like I said before, it's a great way to visit places and travel the country.
Sure.
Like the amount of cities I've been to just because of the rugby, it's amazing. So.
And is it leagues and cups that you play in, or is it all friendly games that you're involved with?
No, there are leagues. It's mostly 10s.
Right.
Mostly 10-a-side, with a bit of 15s, but mostly what we do is 10s, little 10s competitions, where there are like trophies and stuff. Yeah, so
that's something. I mean, when I coached Northumbria University, I was coaching. We played in one of the UAU competitions. We played at Hartbury College, the agricultural college, and watching us from behind one of the posts was the Chinese national coach.
Oh, really?
And I'm going back quite a long time, and he was over here on a sort of fact-finding visit, and I think he was involved with the military. So the military have been sort of involved in trying to get rugby promoted in China. Is that something that you're aware of or come into contact with?
I remember we played in Hong Kong Kowloon 10s a few years ago. We played against the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. So it's not much that we see, but they must be trying to build something. I know especially they're trying to build the sevens game.
I was going to come on to that, yeah. I mean, from what I understand, the 15s game is at the bottom of the pecking order in terms of what they're trying to do, and it really is sevens that they're trying to focus on, and they've got a reasonably successful women's team.
Yeah, the women do really well. They've just got onto the World Circuit, haven't they, recently as well?
Yeah, because the men are in the Asian circuit, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they started there, but their aspiration is to try and get into the Olympic Games and to try and actually host one of the rounds of the World Sevens competition. I think that's what the ultimate objective and ambition is.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to build it. Like you say, especially with the women's game, the women are actually surprisingly doing a lot better than the men, which is not something that I would have expected
Does it get much airtime and then in sort of newspapers and internet sort of coverage? Is there a lot of rugby that's actually published over there?
Not particularly, no. Not that I've seen anyway. Most people, if you ask them, most Chinese people, if you talk to them about rugby, they all say, oh, it's too violent, it's too rough, it's too all this. So that they're not massively keen as a people, I don't think. But they're trying to change perception and try and change it. Like we do rugby at our school, and a lot of the parents complain, oh, it's too violent, we don't want our kids playing that. No, but if we actually teach them how to do it properly, it's not violent, it's not dangerous, it's fun, and the kids love it. So
yeah, that's the nature of our sport. We could talk forever and a day about the changes that are taking place. They've just been announced now since you've been back in England in terms of the tackle law and stuff like that. And there's a lot of discussions, but no real answers, I think, in terms of trying to take the potential for problems in a collision, a contact sport. It is inherently a problem that you are going to have contact. That's the nature of the sport, isn't it? You can't take that away from it.
Yeah, it's just about trying to coach it as safely as possible, isn't it? Like, you don't want the kids running in trying to clothesline each other, and if you teach them proper technique, then the chance of them actually getting hurt is obviously diminished massively. So
Ollie Phillips, who used to be a player here and played for England on the World Sevens circuit, I mean, last year he was appointed as China's new coach for the. I think it's just sevens he's involved with, the sevens, isn't he?
Yeah, it's just the sevens.
So I mean, is that a thankless task, do you think, or is it a job that he's going to excel at?
I think he'll relish it. I do, because like I say, they are trying to build it, and I think they do have big aspirations to actually try and succeed and get far. So I think they're actually taking it seriously, and I think he will enjoy it. And
you correct me, but there are some Chinese players that play even in the NBA in America, isn't there? There are some big Chinese people. Amongst the population of China, 1.4 billion? Mm-hmm. You've got to find a seven squad in there somewhere, haven't you?
Well, exactly, yeah. It's interesting because there are so many of them. For the most part, if you look, Chinese people, they really excel at solo sports. They don't usually play like team sports.
Okay.
So
which is quite odd, isn't it? With the family sort of concept that they've got, it is very much rooted in family, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, team sports they don't tend to excel in. It's more like Olympic sports and things like table tennis or badminton or gymnastics, things that you can do solo. But team sports, yeah, they generally don't seem to do as well. So. And
your dad's been out to visit you. You're going to take that microphone off your son for a second, Mr. Gray, and what's the standard? I'll come back to you in a minute, Ed. What's the standard of rugby like that you've seen out there, Dean?
Well, I didn't see very much rugby when we went over, to be honest, because I think it was a close season, Smitty. But what Ed tells me, it's what would you say? It's sort of second team standard-ish. I mean, you've had international players playing, former international players. It's a bit of a mixed bag, Smitty, I think, isn't it? Because you get people go to work in China for all sorts of reasons, and if they're any length of time and they've played rugby, they'll get involved. You have a former British league player, don't you? International player that's playing for you, English rugby league player you mentioned, yeah. So
sorry, Ed, you're saying we've only got one microphone, unfortunately, so we're passing it back and forward.
No, the coach where I'm at the minute at Trangzhou Giants, our coach is a former rugby league professional, yeah.
So what's the sort of, you talked about mixing friends and stuff like that, and we've all got an impression of an English rugby club and what that means in England. Is it the same thing in China? I mean, is there a bar? Is it that social event? Or the things that happen outside of rugby to bring the sort of the expat community together?
It is, yeah, massively. We've got a really good club culture over there. So after each tournament, there's always like a party where all the teams come together. We do fines, man of the match, and donkey of the day, I'll say.
Donkey of the day, okay, right. Some traditions travel well, don't they? Donkey of the day.
And a lot of the time there's a tour theme, so you get in fancy dress, and you all just meet up and you have a big party after you play it.
$6 million question. You've been out there for 9 or 10 years. Yeah. I mean, will China, at some point, become a force in let's just start with sevens rugby around the world, or is it a step that's going to be really difficult for them?
It's hard to say, to be honest. I think what they're trying to do at the minute is good. I think the sevens, if they keep working on it, especially with the women, then they can definitely progress.
So when are you going back to China in 2 weeks' time?
3rd of February, yeah.
Right, and you were saying earlier that it's been really difficult this last 3 years with COVID. I know from speaking to your dad, you were actually out of the country in a period and couldn't get back in because of the COVID restrictions.
I was, yeah. When COVID first kicked off, I was in Laos for a rugby tournament, and then we got a text saying, can't come back to China, there's some new virus that's kicking off. So wait a few weeks and then come back when things have cleared. And then,
so what did you do when
We travelled around Southeast Asia. We went to Laos, Malaysia, Cambodia, and then after 6 weeks we got a text saying, right, you can come back now, get on the next flight.
Every cloud's got a silver lining there.
Exactly, it's class.
Anyway, that's brilliant. Thanks very much for that, Ed.
Cheers, thank you, Smithy.
Fascinating, isn't it? I mean, I've coached, I don't know what club it was, where I've taken a rugby training session at the rugby club in Happy Valley Racecourse in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, yeah.
And it's just, you see it transmit to different parts of the world, and where you see, I'm going to say this and people will stick pins in my model, I'm sure, but you look at rugby league and the efforts to try and put together a World Cup, to think of it a world game, and they really struggle with that. Rugby union is definitely a world game.
It has probably its tendrils in virtually every country in the world from one perspective or another, certainly through the expats game. And it's a growth sport, and there was a lot of money pumped into rugby, or there was going to be, through Alibaba some years ago. I think they looked at, Ed said that didn't really happen to a degree, but they looked at the Japanese success in World Cups at rugby, and they were very keen to emulate that, because it ticks a lot of the boxes they want to have about respect and teamwork and controlled aggression and all that sort of thing. So it's certainly a game that will continue to grow in China, I suspect. And the last thing I'm going to say is they showed the first free-to-air Premiership game, rugby game, before we did in this country, which is bizarre in some respects.
Well, we know every game that the Premiership is covered by TV, and those games go live around the world as they happen. We don't get them here because that's just the way TV deals and everything else. I mean, I've watched Newcastle United at 2 a.m. in Hong Kong when playing Everton, 2 a.m. live on TV, because all the advertising they get is around China, and it's just, that's where all the money comes into the game, isn't it? But
it certainly is.
Anyway, the Connacht team are coming back onto the field. We could talk about rugby around the world forever, but it's European Rugby Weekend. I'll just try and take you through the scores as I know them at the moment. And I've got my mighty phone on just to see if I can catch up with things that are happening. In Pool A last night in the Champions Cup, Lyon 31, the Bulls 7. And in Pool B, Leicester got beat down at Welford Road 27-26 by the Ospreys. This afternoon in Pool A, Harlequins 39, Sharks 29. A great game. I watched that on TV. Leinster 36, Racing 92-10. Bordeaux Begler 17, Gloucester 26.
And if you get a chance to watch the Leicester Ospreys game, watch it. I think it ended on 92 minutes. Really interesting last few minutes of the game. That's all I would say.
Oh, the referee wasn't involved, was he?
Oh, yes.
Oh, well, there you go. I'm not going to say any more than that. 5:30 kick-off in Pool A this afternoon, and it's half-time down at Sandy Park. It's Exeter 14, Castres 3 in Pool B this afternoon. It was Northampton Saints 13, La Rochelle 31, and at half-time, Stormers 3, Claremont Auvergne 6, and the 8 o'clock kick-off tonight, Ulster against Sale, and tomorrow in the Champions Cup. And this is a 5:30 kick-off, Edinburgh against Saracens, 1 o'clock kick-off, Montpellier against London Irish, and 3:15 kick-off, it's Toulouse against Munster. And I've got Dom coming in my ears now, and this game here is just about to get started in the second half. Fitzgerald gets the game, ball in the air. Timing was terrible, Dom. They've just started literally as you came to me. The second half got underway with Conor Fitzgerald putting a high kick into Newcastle's 22, and Connacht are just pushing the buttons at the moment, putting Newcastle on the back foot as they work the play out towards the right-hand side of the field. Newcastle started this game really strongly, and by 19 minutes, should I say, so halfway through the first half, they'd raced into a 3 converted try to nil lead, so they were winning 21-0. Then Connacht started coming back into the game in the second half of the first half, 2 tries for themselves, and the half-time score at Kingston Park, 21-14. I say, we just started the second half. This game could go either way, obviously. And Dom is out my ears so we can get back and concentrate on our game. And Newcastle get the penalty. Sorry about that bit of missing commentary as the game was rolling around in Newcastle's 22, but they defended wide out on the left and then out on the right, and then Connacht give the penalty by going off the floor. And frantic start, Neil.
Frantic start, well defended by Newcastle. Connacht just pushing those buttons, as you rightly said, looking to get into the game early doors with a try and probably equalise the scores if that were converted. So Newcastle did well to repel wave after wave of attack, eventually going off the feet. Newcastle penalty, chance to clear the lines. Just
to reiterate, Newcastle's chances of progressing in this competition went this afternoon when Cardiff couldn't win down in Brive. Brive 37, Cardiff 24, so that bonus point win takes Brive out of sight of Newcastle. Even if Newcastle win with a bonus point, they still will be a point behind the men from France. Newcastle short liner again to Ferns at the front, on to Pete Lucock in midfield from Schoeman. Takes play up to just about the 10-metre line, back to Schoeman from Josh Barton, right-footed kick. Underneath that kick is fullback Mac Hansen, takes the ball cleanly. In fact, it wasn't, that was Byron Ralston who moves the ball back to Hansen. Big right-footed kick from the fullback, finds Tian Schoeman up to Newcastle's 10-metre line, puts the ball back into the 22 of Connacht. Hansen again, right-footed kick, and that has got Alex Tate coming forward, takes it cleanly on halfway, hugging the right-hand touchline, sets off in field, taken down to ground. That looked a little bit high, but difficult to see because people are walking in front of me. And the ball is moved on. Schoeman gets the ball away. That's Ben Stevenson back inside to Josh Barton. Josh Barton across the try line. That's the bonus point try for Newcastle.
Yep.
As that was going into the 22, people kept walking in front of me with cans of beer, pints of beer in their hands, and they're more interested in finding a seat than watching the rugby.
Yeah,
as per normal. If I try to punch anybody, will you stop us?
No, I'll let you go because I'll punch them as
mate.
well. It's really irritating that people can't manage to get out from the start of the game, isn't it? But there, a good try by Newcastle, wasn't it? Well worked, found that little bit of space. Good finish by Barton, scampering along the right-hand side touchline. It wasn't a great kick, was it? I think, was it Adam Byrne or Mac Hansen?
No, it
put
was
a ball up?
Mac Hansen.
Mac Hansen, yeah, not the best kick. Gave plenty of space to run back into. And Newcastle just been really incisive and accurate in the attack. And as you say, that's a 4-try bonus point.
That's it. So it's just a pity in terms of Newcastle progressing that they had to rely at this late stage on Bree. But if you lose the first 3 games of this competition in the way that Newcastle lost them, then that's what's going to happen, isn't it?
You shouldn't go through. I suspect had this squad, not to disrespect any other players that played against Connacht, that game could have been an awful lot tighter.
Well, the
clock
clock
been very good tonight, haven't they?
They have, yeah. Sorry, I was just looking over there for a time and the clock hasn't moved, and the clock's not working, I'm being told, so we're back to using me watch. So we're going to say that's 3 minutes. So 43 minutes, we'll say Barton gets the bonus point try. Schoeman has got the ball on the tee.
I've got Ed sat here. If you've got 50p, you can zip over and put it in the meter.
And Schoeman's got the ball on the tee, a metre inside the 22, maybe 16, 17 metres from the right-hand touchline, strikes that. That is through the middle. Dead-eye Dick this evening. And Schoeman gets the conversion. If my maths is right, that's 28-14.
28-14's come up on the board, Smithy, and the clock is now working. It's showing 44 minutes 10. So,
right, so my 3-minute guess for the try is just about right.
Probably
so
spot on, yeah.
We'll go with that. Fitzgerald's going to get the game restarted. And all the Connacht players on the left-hand side of the field were in front. Left-footed kick finds Josh Barton, who hits the ball back down. It's bouncing in front of Fitzgerald, picks it up, gives it to Hansen. Hansen gets across halfway, accelerates. Newcastle just level the fullback, and I couldn't see who that was involved in the tackle, but Riley picks the ball up. That was Ben Stevenson involved in the tackle. Riley, live wire, moves the ball on to Delahunt. That's a lovely soft pass from Delahunt onto second row Josh Murphy. The pick and drive again. That is Delahunt involved in the contact work yet again. Ball is on the floor. Riley gets back to his feet. Newcastle making sure they stay on side. Fitzgerald moves it on. Again, a little short pass to Leva Fifita. Change of direction as Mac Hansen moves that ball on to Byron Ralston. Newcastle's defence is strong. Can you do that? Newcastle's player was on the floor.
He can't play the ball on the floor, no, but it was loose. He can dive on it.
He dove on the player.
Can't do that, no.
Well, I thought he drove on the player anyway, but Newcastle have managed to recover the ball, and Newcastle trying to get some order into the play. The aggression certainly has gone up from Connacht. They didn't like that score against them at the start of this second half. We've got a 28-14 game. Josh Barton gets to the base of the caterpillar. That's a high kick that's up in the air. That's got Mac Hansen underneath it. Brings the ball in safely, tries to step around the outside of Newcastle defenders, then spins towards the inside, gets up towards halfway. Newcastle just holding that halfway line as their offside line. That ball was passed on to Finlay Beelum from Shane Delahunt. Riley is there again. Fitzgerald moving the ball towards the... That's a lovely tackle in midfield again by Newcastle. They're moving the ball towards the left-hand side, the right-hand side of the field, should I say. That ball is in the air and it's bouncing backwards off a Connacht player. Schoeman is running back from the little chip over the top from Riley. Back to Alex Tate. Tate, right-footed kick. Has got Fitzgerald coming forward. Fitzgerald moves that ball across, and that is the right foot of Mac Hansen that looks for space wide out on the left-hand side. Ball back to Schoeman, across to Josh Barton. Barton puts his right foot through it, tries to make sure that goes into touch, and it does. It's fielded by one of the ball boys.
And they're arguing that the ball was taken back in, Smithy, and I think it probably was actually from outside the 22.
Well, Fitzgerald's got wonderful eyes if you can see from back there where the lines are, because they are going back.
Yep.
Fitzgerald was arguing vociferously that ball was taken back in. I saw Barton take a backward step, I've got to say, but he seemed quite convinced that he was doing the right thing by hoofing it up the right-hand touchline. It found a safe touch, but it's come back to a kick that is inside Newcastle's 22 by about 1.5 meters.
Yes, just a little error, just allows Connacht an opportunity to attack. It was a good clearing kick as well, but unfortunately it had to bounce before it hit across the touchline. Just a little bit of miscommunication about where they were on the 22.
Delahunt's feeding that line. Referee's not happy. The gaps are being closed by Newcastle. That's a bit rich after all the movement there was in the first half.
Well, I mean, I do like to see they're going to take the scrum almost certainly, would imagine, on the line again. So it's a bit of a pointless thing, but it's saying if you keep doing it, you're going to get penalised. It'll be a free kick first, then it'll be a penalty next.
Well, the thing is though, that we compound the problems by layering another layer of intricacy into the way the laws have got to be interpreted, and it gets more and more and more complex.
It's always been the case that the referee can
just
ping
make
aside.
them stand in the right place.
Well, yeah, but we've seen hookers, haven't we, time and again stepping away and stepping away.
Make them stand in the right place. That's all they've got to do. If the team moves in, penalise them. It's not difficult, is it?
Which is what he has done, but unfortunately a free kick isn't a huge sanction because they've just ended up with a scrum rather than a line out.
Well, the scrum's gone down. Referee is standing next to it. They've got a thankless task, haven't they, the referees?
They have.
They've got a really thankless task in terms of what goes on in there. And I think the fundamental changes that have come into the game that we haven't had time yet to, we'll digest them over the next few weeks and talk about them maybe in the Bristol game. I think this is the start of some significant changes that are coming into our game that are going to change the complexion of the game forever.
Don't forget, it's only community level that's been brought in.
I think it'll be brought in at a higher level.
I wouldn't be the least bit surprised, but it's been done in France in 2019, and concussion incidents went down by 63%.
That's not what I heard. What I heard, concussion incidents amongst players in tackle situations went up dramatically, is the bit that I read.
So that we've got diametrically opposed.
And it was level 6 or 7, wasn't it? In one league in France. They haven't really trialled it extensively, have they?
I think it's across the board. I think it came across the board in 2019. I could be wrong.
It was one level in France that trialled it. And the scrums have gone down again.
Penalty.
Referee's not sure. He penalises Newcastle. And I don't see what that... Well, he said that was a hand on the floor bringing the ball back, it looked like, but the ball wasn't in the scrum.
I think he's saying just collapsing, folding down, Smithy, that signal, rather than trying to handle it back. Yeah, he's saying collapsing.
Okay.
I don't like to say, my view is that the scrum's not live and the ball's fed in, and that would certainly get rid of a lot of the shenanigans that go on early doors in the scrum, and after a while I think players would learn not to take the mickey.
How?
Well, you just scrum until they get it right. We're not going to penalise anybody.
Crowds aren't going to come and watch that, are they?
Well,
TV isn't going to watch that, are they? That's the issue, though, isn't it? It's an entertainment now. The sport bit of it is almost secondary to the entertainment value. Connacht won that line out. They're really putting Newcastle under a lot of pressure. Riley's got the ball, moves it on to, I think that's Adam Byrne that was involved. That's Adam Byrne's on this side. That was Mac Hansen, I think, who took the contact. They've knocked it on. It is going to be a scrummage to Newcastle. Carl Ferns is clapping. That was involved in that Pedro Rubiolo. And that was well done by the Argentine. It's going to be another scrummage. We've got a scrum fest at the moment, mate.
We have, and that's a problem, isn't it? You know, that you say that if they said the scrum isn't live until the ball's fed in, but when the referee blows for a free kick, what happens? Or generally a free kick, early engagement, whatever, the scrum again.
So I mean, you know, my answer to this is just to, as soon as it goes down, the referee blows, just play on, just let the scrum off run. We're sharp, stop getting scrummages going down. I can guarantee that.
Well, yeah, it's certainly got to be something done, because it sucks the life out of the game as a sport. I know players are getting tired at this stage of the game, and defending 5 metres from your own line is really difficult. You're trying to buy an advantage. Connor referee, front rows are wily old creatures quite often, and it makes it really difficult. But it's not entertainment, this, is it?
Well, that scrum is pretty solid, and the Connacht crowd are starting to... Well, Newcastle drive up on their loose head side, and they get penalised by the referee for driving across.
Across the line, he's saying, through and across the line.
Is absolutely, he's just shaking his head as he walks back to the try line, and they're going to scrum again, aren't they?
Yeah, I would imagine so. They've got to really, haven't they? There's very little point in taking the points when they're 2 tries down. Tap and go. Okay.
Tap and go. That's the new thing, to try and get closer to the try line than a scrummage would get you. And Delahunt is taken down to ground 2 metres short of that line. They are very aggressive. Connacht, they've got some big men, and they are trying to bang it in, and Mulipola
what a tackle.
Wraps himself around the Connacht player that heaved himself towards the Newcastle try line. Referee's on his knees. The try is not given. Connacht pick and drive again. Penalty against Newcastle. They are camped on Newcastle's try line. This is a repeat of the last 10 minutes of the first half, and Connacht really steamrolled Newcastle. Is that ball down? Yes, it is. Referee's given the try. The Connacht crowd let you know what they think. There's a lot of people here from Connacht, isn't it? As you said earlier, Jim, they're making a bit of a noise.
They're making a bit of a noise and enjoying the weekend, enjoying a really good game of rugby. Our comrades from Galway Radio next to us as well are dancing up and down just when that try was scored. They seem to be having a thoroughly good afternoon or good evening's entertainment.
Who scored that try? Did anybody know who scored that?
I'll see the last.
Beelum, I'm being told. So Beelum got that. So that's a hat-trick for Beelum. So Beelum got the first try as well.
You'll have to get the jug in later.
You will have to get the beers in. I'm sure that's a tradition that carries on in China as well. And Fitzgerald gets I'm being given the thumbs up. So that is a tradition that.
He refuses to put his headphones on, so he can't hear what you're saying.
Oh, that's all right.
He's listening to the atmosphere.
I refused to buy a jug. I never scored 3 tries.
But he said, "Is a jug good for a hat trick? Is that still a tradition in China?" Oh, ignore him.
Ignore him, I will do, yeah. Kids,
yeah.
28-21. 28-21. They never grow up much.
No, they don't.
And it is 53 minutes gone. And we got a game of rugby. 28-21. 4 tries to 3.
I suspect it is a tradition that continues in China, by the way, Smithy. I'll be very surprised.
Freddie Lockwood, who's coming on the field for Gary Graham. Nice. So Freddie Lockwood is on.
Nice to see him back, Smithy, isn't it?
And it's Carl Ferns that's gone off, actually. So Carl Ferns is off.
Number 8, Carl Ferns. Coming on number 19, Freddie Lockwood.
So that's the change. So Carl Ferns is off. Freddie Lockwood is on. Had a long-term injury as Freddie. It's good to see him back on the field. He made a big impact as a youngster last season when he came on. And that is a kick from Riley. Doesn't get a lot of distance, but he's found a safe touch. Newcastle are on the front foot territorially. They are playing the game about 13 metres inside the Connacht half of the field. Line out on that right-hand touchline in front of the east stand. Blameyer brings the ball above his head. 5 men in that Newcastle line. It's to the back. It's taken down by Rubiolo. On to Schoeman. Across to Lucock. On to the man, in fact, that's Rubiolo there. That must have been Lockwood that was in the line. That's moved on to Lockwood now through the middle. Tackled, rolls on the floor. Nobody holding on to him. And that is got to be a penalty in Newcastle, surely. There was a slow runner coming back. Didn't actually hit him. Newcastle trying to push the buttons. That's on to inside centre. Pete Lucock taken down to ground. Newcastle changed directions. The ball's moved back to midfield. Blameyer takes the contact. Can't get his knees to ground. He can now. The ball is on the floor. Barton trying to bury himself in there, moves it across to Schoeman. Long flat pass to Orlando, on to Carreras. Carreras tries to get away, keeps the ball alive, knocked forward by Alex Tate as he tried to bring it in. And Freddie Lockwood gets himself involved for the Connacht players immediately.
Newcastle butchered an absolute simple 2-on-1 on the left-hand side there, Smithy. Connacht hadn't dragged cover across. Very easy run in and went right rather than coming left. Certain score. Gone begging there, unfortunately.
Adam Brocklebank is on the field, so Brocklebank comes on. Mulipola's work this winter's evening in January 2023 is done, and Ben Stevenson is trudging across to the right-hand wing, which is where he's been, but he's across here on the left-hand side. I think him and Carreras had switched wings for a short period, but Ben Stevenson has moved back over to the right-hand side. Carreras is out on this left-hand side. Pete Lucock's at inside centre, and Orlando is it outside centre? Sorry, Dean.
I was going to say, where do you see Ben Stevenson as a player, Smithy? I've always liked him.
He can play on the wing. Bracken seems an outside centre.
Likewise, that's exactly what.
As he develops, and
the problem is the two Argentines have sort of got bragging rights probably on that, haven't they? His first choices.
Well, it's a squad game now, isn't it? They're never going to play consistently over a large period of time. You need players who can drop in and out of there, and to have a utility player like Stevenson at the wing and outside centre is brilliant for Newcastle. Penalty to Newcastle. I don't think he knows what the scrummage is doing, does he?
That looked like to me, Connacht were all over Newcastle, driving, and Newcastle stood up, and the referees decided again that they're coming across in the angle, and that's what caused Newcastle to lose their balance almost. You would
this
say.
Ref would struggle with blatant thirds against right and thirds, I tell you.
Well, Yeah, fortunately we didn't have many scrums last night, so I was all right.
So they didn't tackle, and there wasn't many scrums.
No, there was lots
what
of
did they actually do?
Lots of. There were 7 clubs represented last night and 5 sides out. It was a really good evening, I've got to say. Lots of people watching. Really good evening's entertainment.
I was watching me log fire, mate. That's what I was doing. Walk the dogs, had something to eat, watch me log fire, reading me book. What a boring existence, eh?
Hey, if it keeps you happy.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I've seen your log fire, it's lovely, by the way. I don't blame you one iota. I'd be in front of that for hours.
It is still Blamire, that's on there. There's 2 replacements for Connacht have come on the field. And it is number 2 and 4 have gone off. So 2, Shane Delahunt, and 4, Levita Fafita, or Leva Fafita. Newcastle win the line out. Connacht are putting everything in to stop Newcastle moving towards their try line. Referee is telling Josh Barton he's got to start thinking about using it. Newcastle are driving forward now though. They're going up the right hand side. Can they break away? It's still in the contact. Referee is saying that's knocked on by Newcastle.
Is he saying knocked on or not you, Smithy? I'm not certain.
Gary Graham is pleading with our referee. Well, we haven't got the ref mic, so we don't know, but whatever he's saying, it's going to be a scrummage to Connacht. Blamire looks absolutely sick as a chip.
Opportunity gone begging there, really, wasn't it? Newcastle had a bit of a drive on. Referee called when it went stationary, use it once. First, you've got to use it immediately as soon as it stops. The second time, Newcastle didn't, went to ground. Whether they knocked it on or just didn't manage to get it to ground, which would have meant Connacht would have to clear away. I don't know, but...
Well, Fafita's left the field, Dean. I'm not certain who's come on as Dara Murray or Kieran Booth, so I'm looking for a number, 19 or 20, to see who's actually come on the field. So if you see that, give us a nudge. But it's a scrummage to Connacht, that's the important thing. Well, number 8, Jared Butler's feet are on the 5 metre line of Connacht, and the scrummage has been set probably 7 or 8 metres from the left-hand touchline as Connacht play in those black strips with the grey shoulders from north to south, left to right in front of us. Newcastle all in green tonight, and that scrum is solid. Newcastle driving, but Connacht it's wheeling around. The referee seems to be happy, and Connacht have managed to get that ball back on their side somehow, and Riley moves it on. Newcastle's defence is strong. Riley gets down to ground, and he's back to his feet because he's brought the ball to the base of the caterpillar. He's bringing it back now with his right foot. It's in the air under pressure from De Chavez. Not a long kick by the scrum half, and that's given Newcastle still the opportunity of playing rugby in the opposition half. This line-out has been set 5 metres outside the 22. They are really having a good time, aren't they? These lads from Connacht, lads and lasses, know how to enjoy themselves.
I think they probably do. As I think from my experience, most people from the southern half of Ireland certainly know how to enjoy themselves.
The guys from Radio Galway are the nicest guys you could ever wish to meet.
Absolutely.
We had half an hour over in the far side with them before they came over here, and what a lovely set of fellas they are. And I'm being told it is number 19 that's on, and Newcastle penalised.
I think they must grow them in the same Petri jar though, Smithy. Look at them, because they all look pretty similar to
They do look pretty similar. Why were Newcastle penalised there? Closing the gap in the line?
Must have been, I would guess.
So they get penalised for not using the ball to scrummage, closing the gap in the line. Is there a self-destruct button out there somewhere?
Well, yeah, you've got to respect what the referee wants you to do, so he's, you know.
Well, free kick, the ball is in the air, fielded by Alex Tate, returns the compliment. And that's got Fitzgerald underneath it, just outside his 22. Steps forward. Ball's in the air over the top of Ben Stevenson. Fielded by Alex Tate. Moves it infield to Tian Schoolman, who can't get hands on it. Moves it back to Carreras, who's trying to get through a gap that didn't really exist. And there are 3 Connacht players all around Newcastle's left wing. He manages to get the ground. They're in their own 22 now. Ball's moved to Blamire, who tries to bludgeon his way through 2 Connacht players. Ball is on the floor. They've lost it in contact yet again, but a penalty against Connacht. I've lost the plot of this game, mate. I'm not certain. We couldn't see that because all the bodies were in the way of the ball. But I've lost the affinity with the refereeing decisions in the last 5 minutes. I'm not saying they're wrong.
It's getting very scrappy, isn't it?
It is getting really scrappy all of a sudden. And you've got 2 teams really trying to play rugby, and the game's just falling apart around them.
It has a little bit. The whistle's going an awful lot, isn't it? But it's scrappy. It's error-prone. That, I think the referee seemed to be signalling off the feet. And we've got a sub coming on here.
Adam Radwan is coming on. And Adam Radwan is on. And who is going off?
Alex Tate.
Alex Tate is going off. And Carreras is going to full back.
Really?
So Alex Tate is off. He could be brilliant there, mind. If he can look at broken fields from that midfield area, he could be absolutely devastating.
Could be.
Newcastle, Freddie Lockwood, short in line. Tries to give the pass to Blamire, but his passing line was cut off, and Connacht do really well to get that ball alive, but it is Rubiolo who puts pressure on Connacht in midfield. There are subs running off and on like I don't know what, and that is a replacement. 21 and 22 are on, so Caelan Blade and Tom Daly are on for Connacht, which means that 9 and 10, so Fitzgerald and Colm Reilly are off. Ball fielded by Ben Stevenson, moved on to Carreras. Carreras looks for space, doesn't find it, just finds big Connacht forwards. Ball is moved from Barton into the hands of Blamire, moves it on to Freddie Lockwood. Takes the contact, ball's on the floor. Josh Barton buries himself in there. Schoeman, flat pass to Brocklebank, protects the ball as he hits Connacht defenders, gets down to ground. Ball is available for Barton, moves it on to Schoeman. Looks back on the inside, gives the dummy, takes the contact. Josh Barton, as Connacht really do get very close to Newcastle players, and that ball has been moved along as Lucock tries to straighten the line, but he's taken down to ground immediately. Orlando moves it across to Carreras. And the Connacht player slips from round his shoulders down to his ankles. Newcastle still have got ball in hand. Freddie Lockwood pushes the Connacht player away with his right hand. The game's been played wide out on the right hand side of the field. Schoeman looks to bring the ball back up his right foot. Underneath that ball is inside centre Cathal Ford in the left hand side of the Connacht 22. The mark's been called. Some order has been restored into the game as Ford gets play up that left hand touchline, and it is going to be a line out to Newcastle. And we are now, is that 61 minutes? So we're into the last quarter of the game, and more replacements are coming on for Connacht. Number 20, Kieran Booth, is on the field. Number 17, Jordan Duggan, is on the field. And that is both props that have left. So Jack Ongie is on the field as well. So we've got Finlay Beelum, who's left, Dennis Buckley's left, Shane Delahunter's left. And I think, to my mind, that is the full bench for Connacht that are being used now.
Well, with 20 minutes left to go. Yep. That's really unusual, isn't it?
Taken by Van der Vault at the front of that line, into the hands of, well, it wasn't into the hands of Schoeman. It eventually found the hands of Pete Lucock, who managed to get, what's the referee doing? Well, the ball is back with Schoeman, so nothing as far as Newcastle are concerned, as Ben Stevenson straightens the line, runs into two Connacht players. Ball's on the floor. De Chavez, I thought he actually put his body on top of the contact area then. He's looking to get away with that, to be honest, but the referee was right next to him. Adam Radwan is hooking this left-hand touchline, and Newcastle will be desperate to get the ball into Adam Radwan's hands if they can. He's been looking for the ball for the last 2 or 3 games and never really found any ball. Josh Barton, in fact it isn't, that's Gary Graham that picks and goes up the right-hand side, still on his feet, gets into the 22, taken down to ground, just about in the 22, and that is Freddie Lockwood again that picks and drives over the top. Lockwood's made a difference since he came on the field, and Newcastle couldn't protect that ball. Connacht just come over the top, staying on their feet, pick the ball up with 2 hands. Couldn't tell you who it was, and that is second row. Josh Murphy smashes into Newcastle defenders on the 22 of Connacht, back into the hands of Tom Daly. And that kick finds Schoeman, right hand side of the field, inside Newcastle's half. It's to Carreras. Carreras gets that ball in the air. That's got snow on it as it comes down. Carreras is underneath it. Well, it's not taken cleanly by fullback Mac Hansen, and the referee said it went backwards. Not convinced by that as Tom Daly puts his right foot through it. It's got Tian Schoeman running across. The ball bounces awkwardly for him. It's still outside the 22, and he gives that ball to Radwan. Radwan, can he get beyond the first player? He can't. He's looking for space, he's looking for work as well. Held up by replacement prop Jordan Duggan. He gets the ball to the floor. Barton moves it on to Van der Vault. Hits the contact. Connacht try and get 2 hands over the top onto that ball, and that is replacement prop Jack Ongie, who's taken a smack in the, well, it's the hooker Dylan Tierney Martin, and Josh Barton knew an offside was coming there, and that is second row Josh Murphy. And what's the problem there? I mean, the replacement hooker Dylan Tierney Martin went back with a clatter on the nose. Was that not something on head?
Well, it could have been. Smithy certainly was down for a while, wasn't he? And I didn't see the incident.
I didn't either, to be honest.
You certainly some face. It could have been a boot, could have been a knee. You don't know. I didn't see the contact, to be honest.
Schoeman takes play up the left-hand touchline.
But I'm going to say, if you're going to be offside, then try not to be 6'6". You know, if somebody's going to spot you when you're that tall.
And the props are changing. Trevor Davison is leaving the field. Richard Palfreman is coming on. Blamire is still on there at hooker, but the 2 props have changed for Newcastle. So Brocklebank and Palfreman are on. Trevor Davison, Lagobi Molipola are off. Blamire going to feed this line. Van der Valt's at the front. Now there's movement in the line. Van der Vault is up, and that's tapped back by Connacht. That was number 19, Dara Murray. And that wasn't cleanly taken in by replacement scrum half Caelan Blade. And that's given Newcastle an attacking opportunity, a line out 7 metres from the Connacht try line.
Caelan Blade just had a little look at it. He was trying to pop the ball off Smithy when he went down, and unfortunately took his eyes off it. It ricocheted off his knee into touch.
Well, will Connacht compete here? Because when they've competed recently, they've caused Newcastle problems in the line out, but so close to the line, they mightn't try and put somebody up, to be honest. We'll have to see. Newcastle going with 6 men in the line this time as the Chavez comes forward. And again, that's taken by Connacht, but they can't bring the ball in. And it's on the floor. They got a hand to that ball, but it went knocked forward. And then Connacht couldn't bring that ball in. I think that was number 7, Conor Oliver, who just couldn't get hands on that ball. And Newcastle's line now all of a sudden has just got very messy. It's symptomatic of the game, really.
It was, wasn't it? Just scrappy. That's the last 2 lineouts that really struggled to control. Connacht, as you say, putting jumpers up. Blamire's throwing, just going slightly off beam again. In the first half, I think there was one that De Chavez patted back, but the rest were perfect. So, I think that sort of situation, you should put a jumper up. Because it was, about 8 metres from the touchline, from the try line. If you stay down, Newcastle have got a powerful drive.
Well, in the Champions Cup in Pool A, at Sandy Park, it's Exeter 21, Castres 3. And in Pool B, it's the Stormers 25, ASM Clermont Auvergne 9. I bet it's warmer in South Africa than it is here.
I bet it's warmer anywhere than here.
It's freezing. It's absolutely freezing up here. I'm going to have to put my shoes and socks on shortly.
I know.
Ball was fed in by Josh Barton.
Sandoz, do you no favours?
Picked up by Gary Graham, into the hands of Barton, across to Pete Lucock, back to Schoeman. Schoeman hit in the tackle, the ball bounces forward. Carreras is across the line, but the referee, quite rightly, had blown up for a knock forward. You could see that coming out. Schoeman tried to protect it, but the tackle came in on his arm and it just bounced away from him.
It was just a bit laboured, a bit lateral, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There wasn't much forward motion. It was going across the field, and it was easy, therefore, just to push and drift and push and drift.
Charlie Madison's jogging. I was looking down at Blamire, who looks like he needs some treatment, and as soon as he went down, Charlie Madison was jogging on, and Madison was coming on for Philip van der Vault. So Charlie Madison is on to go into the back row, I think. Or will they put Blamire back into the back row?
Blamire would have thought to step in the back row, wouldn't he?
But he's injured.
So, right.
That's not a good time to make a replacement.
Well, hopefully he just needs some treatment, and not ideal for times of timing there at all. But hopefully he just needs some treatments back, able to play on, because you suspect he played a lot in the back row, Blamire, didn't he, early in the season?
He did, absolutely. 66 minutes of the game gone here at Kingston Park. Newcastle Falcons 28, Connacht 21. Blamire is restored to rude health. Where's he going to go? He's staying in the middle of the front row. Is he? The 2 props are there. Where's Blamire going? No, he's got into the back row.
He's gone in the back row, I'm pretty certain.
Charlie Madison, that's going to go into the front row.
I think that's a much more natural fit, isn't it?
Yeah, and Newcastle are making another replacement. So it is Josh Thomas, and that's all the bench is gone. So Tian Schoeman has left the field.
Mixed bag from Schoeman tonight, wasn't it? A couple of breaks, some nice distribution, but I think 2 missed kicks from penalties, which is pretty inexcusable, really. Didn't really get a lot of distance. Kicks off the ground was very good. Kicks at the sticks, but yeah.
Well, Newcastle's backline at the moment has Carreras at fullback, Ben Stevenson and Adam Radwan on the wings, Pete Lucock and Matthias Orlando in the centres. Josh Thomas is at fly half, Josh Barton is at scrum half, but it's a Connacht scrummage just inside their own 22 in midfield. That scrum is solid. It's fed by Caelan Blade, should I say, and eventually it starts moving around. What's the referee going to give? Penalty against Newcastle. How can he give that, mate? How can he give that?
I thought that just wheeled and should have been reset. That's what I would have given. I suspect he just decided Newcastle broke the bound. I think sheared off, and that's why
he's seen driving across. I don't get it.
I didn't get that.
I don't get it.
That. I think it just screwed round, to be quite honest, and I would have reset that scrum. But there you are.
Ball is in the air from the right foot of Tom Daly, 29-year-old Ireland Sevens player. Takes play up that left-hand touchline, and it is Dylan Taney-Martin who's going to feed this line for Connacht, and that is going to be, is it a full line? I think they've got 6 in that line. One of the back row is in the centre channel.
We won't say anything about taking a dive for Tom Daly, will we?
No, we won't say anything about that. Ball is down from captain Jared Butler into midfield. On to inside centre, Cathal Ford. Ball has moved on from Caelan Blade, and that is Mac Hansen, who's wrapped up and taken down to ground by Adam Radwan. Ball is on the floor. Carreras wants somebody to drop back into full-back because he's up on the left wing, and Adam Radwan has done that. Ball has moved on from Caelan Blade into midfield. Connacht aggressive. Get that ball back. 22, Tom Daly moves it on. They're through a gap, wide out on the left-hand side of the field. Newcastle's defence just about does enough. And that ball, is it in touch? Newcastle have managed to get that ball back. I don't know how they managed to do that, to be honest, but there's a Connacht player, doesn't look well on the floor. I think that, I'm not sure who that is. That outside centre, Byron Ralston, I think it is, who's just getting back to his feet very gingerly, and Newcastle have got control of the ball in a ruck where the ball has been brought back by Josh Barton with his left foot. He's at the base of the caterpillar. The ball is in the air under pressure from Dara Murray, and that is Mark Hansen, who takes that ball clean. He looks for space, doesn't find it. Charlie Maddison brings him down to ground, change of direction as Blade moves it back towards the left-hand touchline. Newcastle's defence has been pretty strong, but it's got to hang in there because they are moving the ball with some purpose and some aggression. This reminds me of the way Sarries were playing the game last week. We were watching down in Cardiff, just blasting into the defensive line, and that's a lovely give. Lovely show and go by Blade. That's a forward pass, surely to goodness, and that is Caelan Blade who gets across the line. That look forward from here, but the referee, I'm sure, will be getting instructions from the TMO if it is.
Well, he listened, he put his hand to his ear because he was getting a feed from his assistant referee on this side. So
well, he's given the try.
Obviously fed in, that's lateral. If it was lateral, it was aggressively lateral, shall we say.
The crowd don't like it. The Newcastle part of the crowd anyway. And what's the referee doing? Is he going back to have a look?
We've got a view on the big screen here, so I'd be surprised if the TMO isn't looking at this.
Let's look at the lines on the floor, and that is, I'm sorry, that's forward.
It does look forward.
That's miles forward.
And I think the referee's saying wait, please. Is he saying wait? Yeah, he's standing in front of the kicker.
He can't allow him to take it. That angle's no good. Blade did well to get across the line, but I'm sorry, that is, if this is given, then I am... Great, go to the screen, that's it.
Yeah. I think the TMO's done enough there to refer it up. He certainly spoke to his assistant referee and said that's okay. The TMO's intervened and said, no, you need to have a look. Dead right too. He looked about
Matteo Carreras.
It's a yard or two forward, isn't it?
Matteo Carreras. It's
a yard forward.
It's a yard forward. Yeah. The ball was on the tee. Tom Daly was standing next to it. Carreras walked up and kicked the ball off the tee. Tom Daly pushed him in the back, went back, got the ball, put it back on the tee. But I'm afraid it's all going to be to no avail, Mr. Daly, because that has got to be forward.
Well, let's hope so.
Well, Caelan Blade's not happy because he's following the referee into the corner. That's just forward. No matter which way you look at it, that is just forward.
Yeah, you can tell by the lines on the field, can't you? The referee's in one look, he's going back, and if he's taking one look, you suspect he's seen that's forward. He shouldn't need to look again.
He shouldn't need to look from there. You could have seen that from the other end of the field.
Could have done, but... Still waiting for a signal. You get the ball off the halfway line,
try.
I think. Yeah, no try. Forward pass. I think we all saw it up here. We're not down at pitch level. It's easy to see it from up here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I don't know why. Why does it take so long? The TMO has just got to say, I am definitely telling you that is forward.
I think he's got to get the right camera angle to review it. He's got to rewind play, and I think he did that pretty timely, actually. That wasn't long. It wasn't a long delay. I think the right intervention by the TMO, right decision in the end.
I hope the Radio Galway people have got the Valium ready because they got a bit excited there.
It would be. It would have been 28 each.
Yeah.
With 10 minutes left. What a last 10 minutes that could have been.
Well, what last 10 minutes it still could be. So we're Newcastle have looked like they could, but they've been on the rack because they haven't in this second half, and that's the story of Newcastle's night. In patches they look very, very good, but when Connacht cut loose, they've been Newcastle really hang on, and that's a solid scrummage. And Josh Barton bends into it, moves the ball across to Josh Thomas. Left-footed kick has got Mac Hansen running back to bring it in, and that is Adam Radwan, who is just foxed by Hansen as he steps around the outside of him, and he's held up by Gary Graham and Josh Barton. And it's not Josh Barton, it's Josh Thomas, and that is moved on to the second row. That is Josh Murphy. Lots of Joshes on this field. Tom Daly across, and that's knocked forward by inside centre Cathal Ford. And Newcastle get the relief of a scrummage, and they will take their time. We're now 71 and a quarter minutes of this game gone, and Adam Radwan trying to G up the Newcastle pack. I don't think they need any G'ing up, to be honest. They are they've been working hard, haven't they? They just need to get on the front foot a little bit with some territory.
Yes, they do, yeah. They would love a scrum penalty here, give them an opportunity for a shot at the goal or kick to the corner, and that should it won't seal the game off, but it would just take a wee bit of pressure off, wouldn't it? But a great attacking opportunity in midfield scrimmage on the 10-metre line in the Connacht half, and there's some real flyers out there now, isn't it? We've got Carrera, Stevenson, Radwan, and a bit of power in midfield as well, so a really good attacking opportunity. I just hope to keep this ball in hands. We might see Gary Graham come around the corner here, I suspect.
Yeah, well, Gary Graham's dropped in number 8, hasn't he? Rubiolo and Blamaya are on the flanks. Couldn't say one's blindside or open side because it's right in the middle of the field. So
of course, they've got to win the scrum first.
Yeah, they've got to win the scrum first. That ball is fed in. Charlie Madison brings it, well, eventually it's back to Gary Graham, moved on to Josh Barton, who pushes the ball into the corner, and that's got Mac Hansen running across there, and it's evaded him, and he's under a bit of pressure. And that pressure is Ben Stevenson, and he takes him back over the try line, drags him down to ground, and that is going to be, what's that going to be? Tell me, referee.
That should be a 5-metre scrimmage,
right?
Because it was taken over. Was it taken? Depends whether it was kicked over.
It's taken over. And
if it's taken over by the defending side, it's a 5-metre scrum. If the attacking side has delivered the ball into that area, then it would be a goal line dropout. So this would be a 5-metre scrum, which is the right.
Yeah. Another aeroplane comes into Newcastle Airport. Sorry, mate.
I had one of those to give last night and had to scratch my head for a little while. Not figuratively, rather than literally, fortunately, about what you give.
Right. Well, there you go. And that was great work by Ben Stevenson, putting a lot of pressure. That ball just evaded Mac Hansen, and Stevenson was immediately there, got a hold of him, wrapped him up. Under the new community laws, he wouldn't have been able to do that because he put his hands above his waist, and he couldn't have done that in the game as it moves forward.
Yes, let's see that the fine detail when that comes out. It would be interesting to read. But really, really good play by the Falcons actually, just to work that position.
Well, the scrum
great following up, isn't it?
The scrum breaks up there. And the scrummage, the clock is still ticking, and we're now down to 7 minutes from the end of the game. Adam Radwan, again desperate for work, runs all the way across to talk to Pete Lucock and Josh Thomas, then he jogs all the way back out.
I think he'd be running across to say, just give me the ball.
Just
give me the ball. And I mean, you've now got Carreras and Lucock.
Well, that's what they should do. Carreras and Radwan should be together all the time if they can manufacture situations with the two fastest guys on the field in the same part of the field at the same time. That's got to pay dividends, I would suggest.
That's going to scare any defence, isn't it?
Absolutely. Josh Barton is going to bend and pick that ball up from Gary Graham's legs. The ball is into the hands of Schoeman. Looks for space, tries to get across the 5-metre line. Turned on the floor. The ball is there. Newcastle being driven off it. Connacht player comes through the middle and makes a big mess of that, but Charlie Madison manages to rescue the situation. We're down to 6 minutes on the clock. Carreras into scrum half, moves it to Gary Graham. Gary Graham turns his left shoulder, smashes into the line of Connacht defenders that are defending aggressively. Blamaya can't bring that ball in. He looked like he was looking for the tackle before he got the ball, and it just bounced off him as he shaped his body to take the tackle without hurting himself. And I didn't quite get the crowd that was announced there, so if somebody can write the crowd number down, that would be handy, because it isn't a big crowd here, but you wouldn't expect it in January. And
well, it's not the season ticket either. It's bitterly cold as well. I would have thought there might be a few people coming along, because most community rugby was off this afternoon because of the weather. So I don't know. What do you reckon? Sort of 5 and a bit thousand, 4 and a bit.
If that. I think if you're looking to get 4 in, to be honest, I think that's probably about the maximum. Which on a cold January night, as you say, it's a funny kick-off time. 5:30 is a funny time, isn't it? It's not a night-time game, it's not an afternoon game.
Just to go back to that previous phase of play, I think Newcastle just missed an opportunity there. They had Pete Lucock who'd bang in the middle, they didn't get clean ball to work, they had Carreras and Radwan absolutely primed to go, and I think the better option might have been giving the ball early doors and just frighten that Connacht defence.
Well, that scrum is solid, and Connacht's number 8 is going to pick, well, he picks and drives up the right-hand side, gets beyond the gain line, taken down to ground. The ball is back with Cathal Ford from Caelan Blade, man of the match. Oh dear me. We've got to say Beelum scored 3, haven't we? I'm going to say Beelum because he scored 3 tries, man of the match, and that is in the hands of Radwan. And Radwan taken down to ground, wide out on the right hand side of the field, looking for work off this left wing. Back to, that is Rubiolo on the floor. Josh Barton puts his right foot through it. We're now down to 4 minutes to go. That ball is in the air, and there's a collision in the air, but referee is happy and nothing was untoward. Not sure where the ball is. I think it's Connacht's ball, and it is, and it's bouncing around because they couldn't get that pass away cleanly. Picked up by Dara Murray. Gets back to the 22. Caelan Blade looks for runners. They keep the ball in hand here. Well, they were until Tom Daly decides to hammer it down the middle part of the field. and that's got Carreras underneath it. Takes that ball cleanly up to halfway. He's looking for space, steps back inside, can't run through every Connacht player and gets taken down to ground. Ball is on the floor. Josh Barton is pleading with the referee. Ball is back with Charlie Madison, gives the dummy, takes the contact. Not really very incisive, that contact, and ball is moved from Barton to Palfreman. Hits into that defensive line again, strung across the field, 8 metres inside the Connacht half. Charlie Madison, well, that's a pass to nobody. Orlando does well to pick it up. Now he's just standing in front of Connacht defenders. Ball is on the floor again. Barton moves it on, and that is tackled on Newcastle's Argentine back row, Pedro Rubiolo. Josh Barton taking his time, bringing that ball back. 3 minutes on the clock. The ball is in the air. Cathal Ford comes forward, jumps, Radwan lets him. That ball is bouncing around. That's offside, referee. That came off a Connacht player to a Connacht player that was in front of him. Have Newcastle managed to nick that? I don't think. Yes, they have. Newcastle have got hands on it, and it's into the hands of Josh Barton. Across to Freddie Lockwood. That is Rubiolo, who fights his way up, stays on his feet as long as he can. Barton across to Thomas, on to Carreras, feeds it on to Pete Lucock. Across the try line, try Newcastle. Pete Lucock on the end of a pass that was started by Newcastle's new man, Pedro Rubiolo, and Mateo Carreras stood on his feet as long as he could, eventually got the ball away.
Yep.
That was a well-worked try.
It was a well-worked try. It looked like the move had died, didn't it, when Rubiolo took the contact, but he managed to keep it just alive enough. Then simple hands, decent burst by Pete Lucock to get over the line as well. I mean, he's worked really hard tonight, and Newcastle eventually just sealing this game very late. Found the space. Carreras just drawing 2 players around. He's so powerful, isn't he?
I know, he's got no right to get that ball away, has he, really?
Didn't have any right at all to get the ball, run between 2 players. Both had to move in. Then the one-handed little offload, and Lucock, easy finish for the man in the end.
Well, Pete Lucock has just patted Carreras on the head as he walked past him.
And so he should.
And the Connacht players are coming across to a referee to say, was that not forward, referee?
I wasn't certain actually when it was given, but the referee seems pretty happy. I guess the TMO again will have a look.
It wasn't a pass that there was any distance between the bodies when the ball went. It was literally handed from one to the other, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think we're going to see it possibly on the big screen now, are we? No.
Well, he's letting the kick go ahead, so whatever,
he's obviously happy,
whatever it was, he's happy with it, and the TMO must be happy. Josh Thomas got the ball on the tee, 10 metres from the left-hand touchline, just about on the 22, just outside the Connacht 22. And the clock is saying there's just a minute left. So we one more opportunity for Connacht, but I think that is the game. And that is a kick from Thomas that sneaks in. Sneaks just on the inside of the left-hand post, and Thomas gets the conversion. Newcastle Falcons 35, Connacht 21. Oh, what would have been if Cardiff had just won down in the Limoges.
Yeah, or Newcastle had fielded this side away against Connacht, or taking the opportunities out against Connacht away, to be fair.
Tom Daly gets the game restarted.
Chip shot,
finds Freddie Lockwood. Oh, I'll tell you what, that's not a penalty against Newcastle, referee. That should be a penalty
the other way around
against Connacht.
for a soda charge.
Well, it was an elbow that went into the face from Conor Oliver, into the face of Freddie Lockwood. Freddie Lockwood's not complaining, but from here you could quite clearly see that was arm on face.
I thought it was shoulder, that deliberate shoulder charge, Smithy. No attempt to wrap or anything like that. You saw an elbow, but whatever it was, it looked illegal from here.
It was. He raised his arm anyway. Whether it was the top part of his arm, his shoulder, his elbow, whatever it was, he raised his arm, and that was what I saw. But obviously the TMO and the other officials didn't see it. Connacht have put the ball into the 22. It's Gary Graham that's getting some treatment, just a towel on the head. Looks like he's got a bit of a cut there. But we're into the last minute of the game. The clock's actually saying 80, so we've played the allotted time. This will be the last play, and Freddie Lockwood doesn't look any the worse for having a clap round the head.
Freddie Lockwood, he's like Tom Penny, isn't he? You just worry for his own safety at times, because everything is done full tilt.
It is
full ball, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And you've got to protect yourself a wee bit. You've got to know when to go into situations and when just to stand back a wee bit.
Well, Connacht are going with 6 men in this line, but there's 7 men in the line. And there's a lot of movement, and that's taken down beautifully at the front. Little jumper coming forward to the front, and it's into the hands of Caelan Blade. And he goes aggressively towards the 5 metre line. Ball is on the floor. Was that a knock forward? Referee saying that's knocked on.
End of game.
And Connacht don't like it. And Newcastle win the game. The referee's blown for no side. The Connacht players look at our referee in abject disgust, I think is the best way to express that. And that was a decent game of rugby, a good game of rugby in patches, but very scrappy in patches as well.
I think it's a bitterly cold night. Both sides running the full bench, weren't they, as well? So a little bit of inexperience maybe is coming on. You could argue nothing to play for. So Connacht already qualified. Newcastle just playing for pride basically, and not to end up winless in this competition. That was pretty exciting. There was some good scores from both sides. Thoroughly entertaining. Unmarred by any great incident at all. Referee had a decent game, I thought, throughout, and Newcastle takes some heart from that. Of course, they've now got a long layoff.
I was going to say, will Newcastle learn anything from that in terms of this competition next year? Will they play a stronger side, or will they have to use, because of the way Premiership rugby is structured, with sort of second teams and all the rest of it not getting regular rugby, so lads having long periods of time when they're not playing, will Newcastle have to think about a different strategy for the way they approach this competition moving forward?
I really don't know. I suspect, as Dave Walder said in the interview, they would love to qualify, but the expense of the club of going away somewhere else to play in a game where to be brutally honest, it's not their point of interest moving forward, is it? They're focusing on the Premiership, keeping players fit and able to play in that and moving up the table. So this is very much a secondary. It's almost like the old sort of LV Cup games that they used to be, isn't
there's
it?
No relegation, is there?
There's no relegation.
Does that change the mindset, or should it change the mindset?
I'd love to see the Falcons have played that side, which is a really strong side, bar one or two players who've stepped in. Against all the sides they played against Cardiff Blues last weekend, and against especially Connacht, away at Connacht in that first game, and they might well have qualified, that being the case, but they were pretty good tonight.
And Newcastle, you just alluded to it there, Dean, they've got a really difficult period now with it's the 17th of February is the next game. We're at the 21st today. That's a long period of time, and they've got these games against the Southern Knights, so there's rugby being played, but it's not meaningful rugby in terms of Premiership or European rugby, and it's going to be the squad and some of the academy guys that will get game time in those games.
Yes, it will be, and rightly so, and the players getting a sort of 2/3 of the way season break, aren't they, which I guess some will welcome. Others, it's too long, isn't it? It's too long not to have a meaningful game of rugby. The season's gone skew, and it's gone skew because of Worcester and Wasps going pop, but that's a really long layoff for players then to step back up the combativeness and the physicality of Premiership rugby after effectively being away for what, a month nearly, even that or 3 weeks. That period of time is really difficult for them.
Well, in Pool A, in the Champions Cup, down at Sandy Park, latest score, sort of final score, is Exeter 28, Castres 3. In Pool B, in South Africa, the Stormers are 30, Clermont Auvergne are 16. That's the end of Newcastle's European campaign in this 2022-2023 season. A campaign that could have offered so much more. We could have been on a road trip to save Maidens and Dragons down in Llanelli.
I'd still rather go to south of France.
South of France would have been very nice, but we're not to be there. Many thanks to your son Ed, who's standing next to us for his chat at half time. Really interesting about rugby in China, and as I say, with 1.4 billion people, there's got to be a sevens squad in there somewhere, and we'll no doubt see them on the World Sevens circuits at some point in time. Hope you enjoyed the commentary this evening. We'll be back with you in 4 weeks' time on Friday the 17th of February when we're at Ashton Gate to bring you commentary on the Gallagher Premiership clash between the Bristol Bears and the Newcastle Falcons. Stay safe. Final score at Kingston Park, Newcastle Falcons 35, Connacht 21.